Before we get started here, Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson. Want to give a special thank you to our sponsors that make this show possible each and every week. And now going on, 3 years? Appreciate Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. This is often the time of year where people are thinking about their expenses heading into the following calendar year. What better way to make those numbers look a lot better for you and your household than maybe getting another quote on auto insurance? Perhaps it's your renter's policy, or even your boat insurance, life insurance, whatever the case may be. Call Brad and see how he can help you. 515-256-6480. That's 515-256-6480. Brad is right down in the heart of Des Moines on Fleur Drive. You can visit him online at bradvanmeter.com. Also want to thank Iowa Smokehouse. And boy, this came in handy today, folks. Great game day snacking, filling your needs. iowasmokehouse.com. You can visit that website and check out this local company that makes quality snacking products for you and your family, your friends, whoever you have hanging out with you on game day. And they've got beef jerky, they've got meat sticks, steak bites, all kinds of great products. And it goes great with good old beer. Maybe it's a bourbon. Check it out, iowasmokehouse.com, and use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your total order. Again, courtesy of Iowa Smokehouse right here in the state of Iowa. So the Iowa Hawkeyes take down Illinois in very odd fashion, but how fitting to do so in odd fashion. And this is basically what we've become accustomed to with Iowa football, and not only winning games, but winning big games, albeit against a division that's not very good. We're not going to harp on that for the time being. Iowa is the West Division champion in 2023. The Hawkeyes taking down the Illini of Illinois 15-13 on Senior Day inside Kinnick Stadium, and lots to get to. So many storylines in this game. It didn't feel like Iowa played great on either side of the ball tonight. Obviously, the defense was still really good to only allow 13 points to a guy that carved out the Hoosier defense a week ago. And, the Hawks missed Cooper DeJean. You were going to miss your best player. But as I said prior to this game, I thought they'd be fine. A lot closer maybe than I thought down the stretch. Iowa needed a 30-yard run from Caleb Johnson to seal the deal. And then we all got a little nervous, got some sweaty palms when we saw Drew Stevens' extra point blocked. So, this is typical Iowa fashion. Of course, started the game with a safety. How appropriate. We're going to be getting to your calls. We're going to be getting to Coach Don Patterson, who will be joining us very soon. He's en route back to his home base. And we'll also have Tom Kakert of HawkeyeReport.com on 3 will join us following the press conference with Kirk Ferentz. So a lot to get to. A couple things before we get started. I mentioned Iowa Smokehouse, mentioned our good friend over at State Farm, Brad Van Meter in Des Moines. Also want to thank RTI Threads. They are supporting so many Iowa athletes, folks. So a good way to support the athletes and the football team, not only by supporting the Swarm and supporting the I Club and all those causes, but support RTI Threads and Cooper DeJean's line of apparel. So it's funny. I don't know if you saw this. The first scene tonight on FS1, you saw 2 or 3 fans right in the front row wearing their CD3 Laces Up gear, which I thought was awesome. Check it out. I'm wearing it this evening. And although Cooper wasn't able to play tonight, what a tremendous athlete. This team wouldn't be, what are they, 10-1 now without the, 10-1. They should be 10-1, 9-2 without the likes of Cooper DeJean. Visit cd3lacesup.com. You can also visit rtithreads.com. Again, that's rtithreads.com, and you'll find apparel lines for Aaron Graves, Aiden Hall, Zach Lutmer, Carson Shire, a bunch of young guys, and they're only going to get better, bigger, and better. A bunch of small-town kids, but boy, we've seen so many great small-town stories from this program in recent time, whether it be Jack Campbell, T.J. Hawkinson, Cooper DeJean. It's amazing what Iowa does with the small-town athletes, and they've got some good ones in the wings. But again, cd3lacesup.com, rtithreads.com. So here's the deal, folks. If you want to call in and chat with myself or Coach Don Patterson, you can do so. The number to call in is 515-635-1601. The link to call in via StreamYard, which is the easiest, most straightforward way to call into the show, ask a question, make a comment. We're going to try to keep comments to about a minute, right? So I've said this before. I haven't always stuck to it depending on the circumstances. I know it's going to be a busy evening because it's a great result, right? Just a huge result. When do we ever get to talk about Iowa clinching a Big Ten West championship? This is the second time in the history of this show, but rare air and great air to be in this evening. So again, StreamYard, 515-635-1601. I'll also throw the link to the StreamYard studio up in the live chat for anybody that can't find it in the description because maybe you're not very tech savvy. We don't judge you. We just love you. All right, Iowa Smokehouse. Our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line sponsoring the show this evening. We'll go to our Iowa Smokehouse caller number 1, and it's Alex, who is here bright and early. Alex,
bright and early. Good evening, sir. How are you?
You were almost on the stream before I was, so I consider that bright and early.
Well, I was excited. So great win by the Hawks. Obviously, winning the Big Ten West champ. I know you said to keep this short, so I'll go through my notes real quick. But outside of the game, I didn't care for Devin Gardner. I did not like him as a color commentator. That was just my personal take on that. I just didn't care for him. But that's just me, I guess. Bad officiating all around. Go ahead.
Yeah. Real quick, you're not going to like my response to that because I actually really like Devin Gardner.
I think he jumped the gun a lot on a lot of things before things actually played out. Again, that's just, I don't think he's the worst one I've heard. I just didn't care for him. And I think this is from recent memory the first time I've heard him commentate on an Iowa game. He's probably done a couple more that I don't remember. But this one, for some reason, just kind of he got a little bit under my skin. But
what was it about Devin Gardner that got under your skin? I'm just curious.
it was a lot of his commentating was very, it just seemed like it was very pro Illinois. Like he didn't give Iowa a lot of credit. It seemed like there was a lot of times, especially when Iowa's defense was on the field, he really hyped up John Paddock. And John Paddock's, has done, exceedingly well. He deserves the praise he's getting for, for the effort and everything he's done for the team. But it almost just like Iowa's defense was a second thought. That's just kind of what I took from it. Obviously, the offense being the offense.
I didn't get that. I will say this. I thought he made some really good points in the first half, specifically calling out some of the officiating that actually was pro Iowa. There were a couple odd overturned calls in that first half, and I'm anxious to talk to Coach Patterson about them because one of them was, I believe, a pass interference that was overturned. Clearly was pass interference. Clearly. And
there was a lot of those.
Well, but they picked up the flag, Alex. It was a very odd decision to pick up a flag on an obvious pass interference down in the red zone, actually. And I believe there was a catch that was ruled incomplete on a crucial third down earlier in the first quarter. And I know it wasn't conclusive when I saw it on television, but they did a quick review and overturned that as well. Brett Bielema called a timeout. They did not go back and review that formally, and I thought that was unfortunate for Illinois. Now, with that being said, I thought there were a couple really odd calls. The Quinn Schulte roughing the passer was an unfortunate one. And Devin Gardner, by the way, is a former quarterback. That's probably part of the reason I like him because I think more often than not, he knows what he's talking about as it relates to offense. But he's a little bit edgy, and I like that in a commentator. And I'm a Gus Johnson guy. I mean, I don't need a guy to be
I like Gus.
Makes a lot, but he makes a lot of mistakes, Alex.
Yeah.
A lot of
I like the energy Gus brings. Yeah. But you brought up the officiating. Like, yeah, Iowa got away with a couple penalties, and then that roughing the passer, I think, was kind of like maybe a small makeup call because it was pretty soft. But yeah, it was just in this crew that I've seen that Iowa's had. I can usually tell by the head ref who makes the announcements of the penalties. Usually they're a pretty decent crew, but they just kind of had an off night, kind of like Iowa only gave up 13 points, but it just seemed like they had an off night just because they were just super sloppy. I mean, a lot of penalties. Iowa is a very clean team. They committed a lot of penalties today, which was kind of surprising for them. But
one thing I'll say, and I don't know if there's any truth to this, and I'm sure nobody's going to be able to tell us matter of factly, but one thing that I did think about is it's an emotional day. Senior day is always an emotional day. And we heard about this kind of heading into this game. Balancing act. Kirk was asked about this during his weekly press conference. The balancing act that's needed on a day like today between being emotional and, taking in the pregame moments while also coming back down to earth and focusing. And you wonder, maybe that is a little bit of a hindrance to gameplay and discipline. That's one thing I wonder about because of the emotion. And it was emotional for other reasons, not just because of the seniors, but because of the Brian Ferentz situation. And fair enough. I mean, I don't blame Brian or Kirk for being emotional or the players. I think it was great that the players embraced Brian there at the end and that it was kind of a feel-good moment for Brian Ferentz. It doesn't change, at least I don't believe in any way that should impact how we feel about the move and that it's absolutely the right move that needed to happen. You can debate on whether or not it should have happened when it did during the middle of the season, but it was good to see his players embrace him and show that they have love for him because he's been around he's been a part of this program for a long time.
I don't think, myself, when I was always been critical of Brian, it was basically just, it was critical of his job. I mean, I don't think, and if I did, I'll apologize for it or say I was wrong, but I don't think I ever questioned his love for the program or saying that he wasn't trying. I think just, not everyone can do every job. Like, I'm not made to be an accountant, so I'm not going to be an accountant. Right now, he's not a good offensive coordinator. That's nothing against his character. It's just, hey, he just can't do the job. And you can see, he got doused by a couple Gatorade baths. They were showing him, and a couple of players doused him with Gatorade, which I thought was that was kind of cool to see. The players still said, hey, they understand what's going on, obviously, and they said, regardless, he's still our coach. We have 3 more games with him. So it's, I think they'll relish in that. So try to make this quick, but you get me going. I think you talked about Cooper being out. I think we definitely saw it on when Torrey was punting, because there was a couple times where Iowa could have easily downed it, like inside the 5 or the 1 where it could have been down at the 2. I think that's where we really missed him. Deshaun Lee, I thought, played well. Illinois is a very pass-heavy team. They did show a stat of like their average breakups per game, and they were like 4 or 5 passes over that, and there was still, I think, a quarter left to play. So, for being thrust in there to a team that has really good wide receivers, Isaiah Williams, Casey Washington, Pat Bryant, I thought he did pretty well. I think it was a good learning experience for him. He played off the ball quite a bit. That 3rd and 2, I think when Illinois' second to last possession, he was not even close to his guy. But I think that's good learning experience. I think Nebraska is, nowhere near offensively as capable as Illinois. So I think this was a good test for him, and I think he'll do all right against Illinois. Deacon, I thought looked
as far as gunners are concerned. John Nestor, I think, showed a couple flashes that he could be the next really good gunner, and LeVar is always going to have guys ready to fill that role. The Cohen Intringer one was incredibly frustrating to me, because it appeared to me that Cohen had an opportunity to just bat that ball back. And I know it's maybe easier said than done, and he kind of rolled with the ball into the end zone. And it was a fabulous punt from Torrey Taylor, and it gave, his gunners time to catch up to the ball. So, on some unfortunate things, you're right. Absolutely. Not having a guy like Cooper DeJean hurts you on multiple levels. And Torrey Taylor, I thought, punted well, but they did not own field position today. And that's but it's also a result of what Cooper gave you that you're not having right now because he's out.
Yeah. And then last couple things, I thought Deacon played well. He looked really poised in the pocket. He ran, he rumbled, bumbled, and stumbled for that first down. I mean, I can say that because he's built like a lineman. No, it was a great one. I was when he did it, I was in shock that it happened, but at the same time, I was happy. But and I think this is where having a quarterback as a mobile threat, opens up our offense, and I think that's where. I think we're, as fans, where we're looking to see is like, obviously our offense is not good, but if we had a third option, that quarterback, where you may not design some runs for him, maybe 2-3 times a game, but knowing that if he's in the pocket, he can escape and move out and get, 5-6 yards, it makes the defense try to be honest. So hopefully, that's something as a fan I would like to see. Caleb Brown, actually 7 catches, 71 yards. That's the season high for any wide receiver. So kind of a coming out party with him. I think we're starting to see his potential for this offense. And then I think last couple things I have, bad time management by both teams. Those 2 timeouts Kirk took early in that second half was, especially when it was in that tight of a game. But Brett kind of made a boneheaded play too. Like, he called a second timeout on Illinois' last possession, and obviously it bit him, because now it's like, well, now you have 1 timeout, and it obviously resulted in Iowa winning. If he would have saved it, they could have gotten the ball back and gave at least the old college try. And then what was last? So it was reported by David Eichelt that I thought was pretty cool. There's a picture going out now that Phil Parker gave Kirk Ferentz the game ball, like presented him the game ball for that. So, and you can see he's holding the ball up, he's emotional, Kirk, and everything. And then a question for you, and it's a good question for other people, is who do you want to see, and who do you think Iowa's best chances in the Big Ten championship?
I think they have a better chance against Ohio State. I know Maryland scored points today. I really have to look at that again, though, Alex. I would have said that 2 weeks ago, but I pause now because the reasoning I gave a week ago as to why I thought Iowa would maybe have a better chance against Ohio State. One, Kyle McCord simply has not been as good as C.J. Stroud was a year ago. And I think if there's one guy who can challenge Marvin Harrison Jr., it'd be Cooper DeJean. But DeJean will not play in that game. So I don't really know.
They're not great options either way. I mean, just like which one do you feel like we're gonna get less embarrassed by? It's a Hawkeye fan. It's a fan that I shouldn't say that. I want this team to win, but it's just like, I don't think it's wrong of me to be kind of honest. Like, which team gives us a real fighter's chance? So I don't know. I mean, right now with Cooper out and Marvin Harris.
Yeah, I might flip that take. Given the fact that Cooper is now out and seeing Michigan struggle a little bit today with Maryland, a team that's kind of been on a decline in the last month. I would rather beat Michigan because I just don't like Michigan right now. And I haven't liked Michigan for quite some time, but the whole sign stuff is really irritating to me that I have to keep hearing about it. And I don't like Harbaugh, and I don't really care what other people think about that. I just don't. But if you're asking who do I think they have the best chance against, I don't think they have a great chance against either team, especially without Cooper. But I might tend to go more towards Michigan now. I just have to evaluate this. We'll see what happens. I mean, they got another game against Nebraska. It's going to be a challenge on Black Friday because Nebraska's going to be doing everything.
They're going to be fired up.
Game. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but that was all I have. Just again, thanks for everything you do. Thanks for letting us fans come on and celebrate. Or vent, depending on the certain outcome. Obviously, there's been a lot of celebrations going 9-2. Trying to get to that 10th win. But otherwise, I'll get off so I can let other people. You can let other people get on. So thanks for having me. Tell Don I said hi.
Sounds good, sir. Robert says this team has got some talent on defense, special teams. That's it. Congrats on the Big Ten West Championship, but one has to wonder if only we had a decent offense, where would they be? Well, we've been saying that for 3 years, Robert. And I'm not about to become an apologist, but your statement that that's it, there's no talent on offense or on offense is complete fallacy, given the fact that they're down Eric All, Luke Lachey. Those two guys primarily, those guys are going to be NFL tight ends. And so that's just a dumb comment to make, frankly. I think, Robert, I'm not calling you dumb. I'm saying the comment was dumb, that's it. They don't have talent on offense. And frankly, there are talented guys up front. I know Kirk thinks a lot of guys like Logan Jones. I know that the offense hasn't been great. The offensive line has not been great. Caleb Brown is really talented, and they're starting to get him involved more. Certainly, you would have to hope that with an OC change and maybe some adjustments to that offense, they can utilize him better, assuming they can retain him despite the transfer portal generation that we're in right now. Scott with the super chat. Thank you, Scott. What a night for the Hawkeyes. Incredible vindication for everyone. Thank you for the donation, Scott, and for the super chat. If you want to ensure your comment gets read, seen and read, super chat is the best way to do that here on YouTube. You can also donate to the show and send in a comment via Venmo. You can also donate via PayPal and Cash App, all available in the description of the video. Jordan, appreciate the super chat here from Jordan. And I'm not seeing a comment, Jordan, but let's see if we can locate. Sometimes people try to make a comment and they accidentally throw in a super chat without the comment, and they post the comment after. So let's see if Jordan made a comment. I am not seeing a comment. Okay, maybe it's just the second super chat from Jordan. Thank you, Jordan, for this one as well. That's how the West was won. That is how the West was won. And there's going to be a lot of making fun of this division for quite some time, and people not taking Iowa seriously. And as Don Patterson has said on the record, there's an onus on Iowa. There's pressure on Iowa to go to the West, even though people don't expect them to win. This division needs Iowa to go to Indy and compete. And, this division has not been successful in that game for quite a while. And Purdue really got beat rather handily down the stretch a year ago. Iowa, of course, got blown to shreds 2 years ago, and yada, yada, yada. You get on the line. So I don't know how well Iowa will compete against either one of those teams, depending on who wins the game next week. But the good news is the Hawks won't have to sweat it out during that game on Friday. Obviously, you want to win that game, but they do not need to win it to make the Big Ten championship game. They are signed, sealed, and delivered. Eric, appreciate the super chat. Eric, Brian got a storybook end at home tonight. Congratulations, Brian Ferentz. I would agree with that. I don't know, maybe storybook ending. I might not go that far, given the fact that the offense was pretty bad tonight with 15 points. But Great moment for Brian. Really happy for him. And again, that scene at the end shows he hasn't lost his guys, and that's really positive to see. I stand by the decision. I stand with Beth Getz on the decision, even though some people didn't like when it took place, when it was announced. But I am happy for Brian tonight, and I do believe that Brian bleeds black and gold. He's a Hawkeye, and so got to be happy for him for the moment. Hawkeyes 31. They put the Iowa game on the Jack Trice video board when Iowa was losing. It's the first time anyone at Jack Trice has seen a team from Iowa get to 9 wins. Their all-time record of 9 wins came in bowl games. Appreciate that, Hawkeyes 31. I did not know that. First of all, you said, okay, this is I'm assuming you're talking, this would be pre-game. Okay, I see. I'm assuming you're at the game then, because of course the game hasn't started. Iowa State, Texas, just about to kick off from Jack Trice Stadium here in Ames in just moments, actually. Appreciate the super chat, Hawkeyes 31. And let's go to our next Iowa Smokehouse caller. We will go to Scott, who's been on hold. Scott, welcome.
Hey, how's it going? I'll be real brief, but Nebraska's beating Wisconsin 14-0, and Chubba Purdy just ran a 55-yard touchdown. So he's Brock Purdy's younger brother, and I think Nebraska might actually have an offense. So, anyway, I was going to be more critical until we won, so I'm glad we won. But I have to admit, when we were down by 1 point, I was like, man, this is almost insurmountable to come back from. But I do have a comment, and I kind of thought about this when we were, when I thought we were going to lose, and I'm like kind of frustrated. Where on your earlier caller, you talked about, the field position battle. And anytime you play Iowa, especially with Iowa's defense and special teams, you're going to play for. It's going to be a field position battle. But sometimes it's almost laughable. But sometimes I think, and I love that about Kurt. Very few coaches actually take that into consideration, like hitting yardage and all that stuff. But sometimes I think Kurt Ferentz takes it a little too far. For example, there was a series, and this could just be my cynicism, but I think it was either the first or second quarter. Either way, it was the first half. Iowa had the ball at the 15-yard line, and LaShawn Millings had a couple of really nice runs, 8-9 yards. Deacon Hill did a bootleg, threw it to Addison, caught it, and we were marching right down the field until we got to about the 50-yard line. We got a first down, and then the next 3 plays, we turtled it right up the middle. And we punted the ball, to try to down it. And I can't remember. It wasn't the one with the where we ended up getting a safety. It was another one. And I can't remember where Illinois ended up fielding the ball. But at that moment, I'm like, is Kirk Ferentz's goal get to the 50-yard line? That way we can punt the ball, field it at the 1-yard line, so our defense can score a touchdown or a safety. And I'm almost like laughing while I'm watching.
You got to realize, Scott, that is his. You can argue that absolutely is his goal, and it's almost for a lot of the casual football fans, it's hard to wrap your mind around it. But that is what he's not to say. He's playing for a defensive touchdown, but he's saying the risk of going for it on 4th and 1 from midfield, because they punted on 4th and 1, and it resulted in they ended up going for the safety. Yep. So that's what they punt on 4th and 1 from midfield, and you're like, midfield, you can't go for it on 4th and 1. But his mindset is there's more risk involved in losing field position in that situation.
Yes, that is true. But the one that I'm thinking of, the drive that I'm thinking of, is we had a first down at the 50-yard line, but then we ran it 3 times right up the middle. And we punted it. And I'm like, and I understand, playing the field position, pin them deep, let our defense, it has a lot more room to operate. And as good as they are at forcing turnovers, that makes sense. But that should be a secondary goal. The first goal is let's keep getting first downs. When I was watching that drive, I just started laughing because I'm like, oh my God.
Well, I'll give them credit tonight. There was a time, I think it was when they were down, but I question whether or not they would do it. When you fall behind, when they get a 10 to 15-yard penalty on first down, it's 1st and 20, 1st and 25. We saw them, I think, a week ago on 1st and 25, just completely give up. They basically just ran the ball 3 times and we're punting. Forget this. We're not going 25 yards in 3 plays. So that's just how they're it's at an extreme level right now because of the struggles of the last 3 years. Kirk's always been this way, but it's just at an all-time high right now. And so it's I
love the field position battle. You know, it's one of those hidden yardage. It's things that it's unseen advantages, but there's always I'm going to take this to the extreme, just like a guy like Jeff Braun, where he's throwing it 70 times a game. It's like, okay, you're taking the passing game almost to the extreme.
Sure. But if there is something to be said too. If something is effective, hit it till they stop.
True. You can't argue.
I don't think you can necessarily say that about Iowa, but the fact of the matter is, Scott, that Kirk would say we win a lot of games like this, so you trust me because I know what I'm doing when I'm punting on 4th and 1 from midfield. And more often than not, he's right. More often than not in this division against this schedule, he is right. It's not pretty, but he is right about the wins.
9 wins and probably should have been 10 wins. But anyway, I'm glad we won. And I just want to say to all the people that are worried that we're going to get blown out by Michigan and Ohio State, we probably, there's a good chance we will. But in 1980, nobody gave the American hockey team a chance against the Russians.
Oh my goodness. Don't bring this up. Don't bring up the Iowa-Russia hockey game from 43 years ago. Okay. Whenever people want to talk about a miracle, they bring up some once in a lifetime type of deal. Like, well, you remember in the 2nd century when they were playing kick the oyster, and come on. I'm all for miracles,
I'm hanging on to something.
You hang on to it. I'll go for it, Scott.
Hey, that means we have a chance. But anyway, I'm going to go smoke a cigar and drink a couple scotches. So have a good rest of the night.
Appreciate it, Scott. Ed Rogers in the chat. Who's going to hire Brian now? I know there's probably some sarcasm in this question. He will get hired somewhere, folks, because I guarantee you Brian is considered to be a good candidate for a variety of tight end coaching jobs, maybe even some O-line jobs. Could probably coach running backs. Not going to coach quarterbacks anywhere, unless maybe he goes down a couple of levels. But I don't have anything against Brian, and I don't believe he's a bad coach. I don't believe he has proven to be able to call plays effectively and run an offense. It's just unfortunate he's been in this position. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Wayfarer of the wilderness, so happy for these kids, the adversity they've endured all year. The kids, we don't have to talk about the players, right? As much as fans kind of rejoiced when Brian Ferentz, it was announced that he'd be done after this year, there was an effect on the players, and the players give Kirk Ferentz a lot of credit. I give Brian some credit, certainly Phil Parker and the rest of the staff, but the players had to deal with it, and they dealt with the adversity of a very injury-ridden one line, if you will, as far as the depth chart is concerned. We talked about McNamara, Luke Lachey, Eric All, Cooper DeJean. They have been really dinged up. Then you talk about guys like Noah Shannon, who I thought got a rotten deal from the NCAA. Jamari Harris missed a couple of games as well due to the betting stuff, which was on him, right? He did that, and he served his time. I don't think the punishment for Noah Shannon was fair. I stand with Kirk on that. But the point is the players have dealt with it admirably, as they seem to always do under Kirk Ferentz. A lot of people here in the chat talking about Phil Parker being Defensive Coach of the Year, and boy, it's almost hard to find a year where I wouldn't make that argument that should be the Coach of the Year, Defensive Coach of the Year nationally. And what's the Assistant Coach Award? Now my mind is blanking, but yeah, I know he's on the finalist list of that, and well deserved. All right, let's go back to our call-in line. We'll go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line with Corey. Not me, but a different Corey. Corey, welcome.
Hey, I didn't think I was going to get in.
Well, why wouldn't you get in?
I don't know.
Ignored you in the past, Corey?
I like your name though. Sick name.
Hey, spelled the right way too. Can we just make that clear?
Yes. I get the EY all the time. It's awful. But yeah, long time listener, first time call in. Man, I'm just happy to be Big Ten West champs after all they've been through, and just I'm all about grinding it out and getting the job done, and that's what they did. At the end of the day.
Be happy they're Big Ten West champs, and they're not going to be 5-4 Big Ten West champs.
Yeah, exactly.
Because very easily, the winner of this division could have been 5-4, and you win a division, but no national respect. Not that Iowa's beloved nationally,
no.
But if they can end up, I hope they win next week. I saw somebody in the chat say they need to rest the starters. I don't believe that. That's not how college football typically works. Maybe when it's Ohio State taking on Rutgers, and you rest the guys in the second half, but there's too much to play for, and there's too few games for these athletes to start resting people.
No, and I hope they win because I'm going to the game.
Well, good for you.
Yeah,
good for you.
Yeah,
I was over in Omaha for the Creighton, Iowa basketball game the other day.
I watched the game. It looked fun.
It did look fun, but if I got a hard time at a Creighton game, you better be ready. I would not be pulling up to Memorial Stadium with Hawkeye plates or emblems.
We got some locals with us. We got some friends down there, so they're gonna they're gonna be around. So
good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just I was thinking, I was like, I really need a friend. So I went and got a dog, and I named him Hawk. And then we won the Big Ten West, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
What kind of dog is that, Corey?
That is a Border Collie German Shepherd mix. I just got him yesterday.
What on? He looks so. Can I just say this? So he looks like he's, just from my perspective, he looks like he's got a really big head for his body.
Yeah.
But like he is a puppy, right?
Yeah. No, he's a puppy. It's just, I think it might just be the camera angle or something.
I know he looks like he's sleeping, but can you hold him up to the camera?
Yeah. You want to come here, buddy?
So we can see.
Did I wake you? Come here.
Can we do this? Does Hawk want to celebrate with us?
Oh yeah, let's celebrate with Hawk, man.
Okay.
Yeah. See.
Okay, I can see the border collie, German Shepherd border collie. Man, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
He's got a normal head. See.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So we sat down. We watched the game. We sat down. We watched the game today. He's all tuckered out. We did a lot of yard work today, so he's all worn out. He's very shy. Are you shy? No?
I don't think I've ever seen a puppy so looks completely tuckered out. So
oh yeah, no, he's had a really long 2 days, so I think he's just beat.
Well, congratulations on the new companion, Corey, and
thank you.
Hawkeye win, and please don't be a stranger to the show. We need more of the CORYs.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm so busy with farm work, and this is the only time I've been able to call in, so I was just really excited to actually be able to sit down. And I'm like, I'm going to call into the show and see how this all works. So, yeah, Hawks by a million. Go Hawks, and I'll talk to you later.
Amen, brother. Thanks, Corey. Those are the fun calls, right? Those are the fun calls. We got Coach Don Patterson joining us here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Coach, welcome.
Wow, what a day.
What a day indeed, Don. Good to see your face. You're wearing the gold shirt this evening. I would guess that you there was no question about it as far as the wardrobe today. So let's talk about this 15-13 win. Lots to get to. Was not the prettiest of games. Very rarely do we see pretty wins anymore with Iowa football, but boy, we see a lot of them. A lot of wins, that is. 9-2 on the season now with the win today and clinching the West Division title and heading to Indy. How did Iowa do this in spite of an offense that did almost nothing in that second half and a defense that was down their best player in Cooper DeJean?
Well, it was a struggle, that's for sure. It was really a huge game of cat and mouse. We did the best job we could of disguising coverage. Excuse me, Corey. We did play a lot of cover 2, which takes the pressure off the corners, of course, because they're only flat responsible at that point. We stemmed to it a lot. We stemmed in and out of it a lot. Did our best possible job to disguise the coverage. I thought Paddock did a good job of making reads regardless of what we were doing, and we hung in there. You know, they were pretty effective throwing against our corners when we were in off coverage, when we were in single coverage, they did a pretty good job of attacking us. But not to take anything away from our guys also broke up some passes today too. They were straining to make a play. If it wasn't cleanly caught, then maybe they ended up breaking it up. Several times it seemed like it happened that way. So I give our corners credit for competing. It's what they had to do because Illinois is pretty good at wide receiver. And they did a good job of that. One of the keys for the game, as you know, Corey, when I went back and charted just the last 4 weeks of the Big Ten season, the number one parameter over the last 4 weeks was explosive plays. And actually, if you won on that one parameter, your record over the last 4 weeks in the Big Ten was 17 wins, 2 losses, 89% win based on one parameter. As you know, Illinois had 14 explosive plays a week ago. But if you're an Iowa fan, you're not too concerned because over 7 games, our defense gave up a total of 8. And when I got home, the first thing I did was check to see how explosives came out. Unofficially, because I looked through it pretty quickly, it appears we were 2 apiece. We were dead even on explosive plays. Isn't it appropriate, though? The difference in the game, both of our explosive plays happened to be super explosive. And the last one, as you well know, was worth 30 yards and worth a game-winning touchdown. So we had 30 and 31-yard plays. Isaiah Williams had a 32-yard play, as I recall, and a 20-yard catch. That was their 2 explosives. Our 2 explosives were worth more, and only appropriately, our second explosive play was the game-winning touchdown.
Don, I'm just curious, when you watch this game back, what you're going to say about the officiating. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but boy, the crowd really got amped up at a couple of different moments in this game.
Yeah,
One of which being the roughing the passer penalty on Quinn Schulte. I did disagree with that call. I understand the rule about driving a guy into the ground. I don't know what else you're supposed to do in that situation. It clearly was not a late hit, but the comment was made that he drove the quarterback into the ground. I just don't like the call.
Is that what the referee actually announced to the crowd? I couldn't hear him.
That's not what the referee announced to the crowd. That's what Devin Gardner, former quarterback himself from Michigan, that's what he said during the broadcast. And I think he's right. It was not a late hit. There's no way you can say it was a late hit. It was roughing.
He got to the quarterback a split second after the ball came out, right? There's no way he could have pulled off.
Absolutely. And there's also no way, like in that situation, I don't know. I get some of that's a judgment call. And I think you and I have both seen plays where it's clear, okay, yeah, that's got to be roughing if you're really driving the guy into the ground. But it just looked like a normal tackle to me.
Yeah.
And I just, we have seen so many of those types of quandary-like calls all year. I thought there were a couple calls in that first half against Illinois. They were absolutely bogus. Like this is me being objective, Don, because there was a quick review, and that's what they called it on the broadcast, a quick review in which a completion for Illinois was overturned without a long look at the monitors and turned into an incomplete pass. Brett Bielema called the timeout, and they did not appear to ever actually formally go to the tape and look at the catch again. They simply called it incomplete. I don't know why, because when they showed it on television, it looked like he locked that ball with his legs, and it did not appear like it ever touched the ground. Now, I could be wrong on that one, but then later, I believe it was either the same drive or very close to the same drive, maybe the next drive, was the pass interference flag that was picked up, which was also a terrible call. I don't know how you pick up that flag down in the red zone. Clearly pass interference. Deshaun Lee never looked back. He was early on the pass defense. I just a couple of odd calls early. I think overall the crew did fine, but there were a few frustrating calls for both ends.
I will admit, just sitting out in the crowd, it appeared that the officials had a below average day. I'll say it that way.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the Cooper DeJean effect. I mean, you and I have not talked on the show about the loss that is Cooper DeJean, and this is just the start of what we're going to see as far as the effect of, I think, the best player on this roster. But I think we saw his absence, not only on defense, and Illinois seemed quite comfortable going to the air a lot. They are pass heavy. They've been more pass heavy this year, especially with Paddock. We saw that a week ago against Indiana. But it seemed like they were comfortable going to both sides of the field. Certainly punt return duties. We didn't see a ton from the punt return game, although Caden Weegan had a nice little return to midfield that ended up being consequential. I thought that was a heck of a turn for Caden. But then, the other thing you talk about with Cooper DeJean is his ability to read his own punters' kicks and be a gunner effectively. And we saw Iowa lose field position more than we ever do, seems like, tonight against an Illinois squad that doesn't run the ball a lot. How much did you see Cooper's absence have an effect on this game?
Well, it certainly had an effect. I think one thing it did, it forced us to play more cover 2 than what we normally play. Excuse me. We were trying to protect the corners some, just trying to be sure that they weren't always exposed. And when they were one-on-one, it seemed like they had pretty good success throwing against our corners. No surprise there. Neither one's as good as Cooper. I do think, as I've already mentioned, I do think the guys did a good job of competing. They did break up some passes. The bottom line, at least they didn't get beat over the top. If anything, they were maybe a little softer than they would like to have been, because it gave them a chance to catch the ball in front of us and then advance it for good yardage, for first down yardage any number of times. I was glad to see the punt return, because I had heard what scared me early in the game. You remember the punt that Weegan misjudged by a lot. Luckily, it didn't hit him, but it must have come close. The last second, he pulled away from it, and the ball bounded on down the field. But that scared me a little bit, because I thought Cooper's such a reliable fielder. That's where it all starts, of course, is you got to be able to field 99 out of 100 punts. And if you muff 90, if you catch 90%, well, that's 4% drop. If you have 50 punts over the season, that means you're muffing a couple of punts, right? So it adds up pretty quickly. It's got to be against all principles that you ever lose possession by muffing a punt. And that first misjudged punt in the game concerned me, but I'm really glad to see Weegan at the end comes up with a big return. And it set us up for maybe one of the shorter fields we had all day. I think it put us out to the minus 45 maybe. But we did drive on down the field and pick up our winning points off that possession, right? So, being a gunner, you're at the mercy of the bounce sometimes. But I do think, in general, Cooper can get down there faster than any other gunner we have. And in that regard, he's more likely to be positioned on the goal line, waiting for the ball to come to him. We were maybe a little bit in a lag position to try to cover those punts as they batted toward the goal line.
Don, how would you evaluate the offense today overall?
Well, I thought the first half, we did a good job of running the football. We were ahead of the chains most of the time. Credit to Illinois for making good adjustments, because second half, we didn't run for a lot of yards. For that matter, we didn't gain a lot of yards either, as you know. I think we had around 180 at halftime, as I recall. So the second half, third quarter, we had next to nothing, maybe 20. And then the fourth quarter, we picked it up a little bit when we needed to. So that was good to see. But one thing I think that comes to mind for me, I think in general, something for us to think about going forward, because we do have a minimum of 3 more football games. Try to find a way to be better with our adjustments as the game plays out. This game reminded me a little bit of the Minnesota game. By that I mean, in the second half, Minnesota came up with a plan that all but stopped us on offense. We gained next to nothing in the second half against Minnesota. As a result, we lost the game. This second half, we struggled too. Certainly, we moved the ball much better in the first half than the second half. But thankfully, our defense really held in there. Here's one thing that comes to mind for me that's going to get overlooked. I think one of the keys to the game is our ability to get our hands up and deflect passes at the line of scrimmage. Let's face it. Correct me if I'm wrong. 3rd and 4th down on their last possession were 2 batted down passes.
Correct.
That's huge. Absolutely huge because
and that's something that Kelvin Bell and Phil Parker must emphasize, because Iowa seems to do a really good job, even with linemen that aren't particularly tall, or Joe Evans is not particularly tall with a huge wingspan, but he gets up and reads passes really well at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's face it. If the ball left Paddock's hands, as a fan, you couldn't help but think, oh my God, it's probably going to be a completion. I don't know what his numbers were for the day. They weren't great, but they're still pretty darn good. He's proven he's a pretty accurate passer. I'm not talking about today so much as the last couple of games, but even today he threw a lot of nice balls. And I know one thing. I was just thrilled that the ball didn't leave his hand. He left his hand, but didn't cross the line of scrimmage.
Real quick before we move on, I want to get to a couple of super chats here in the chat here. So Jesse, appreciate the $15.13 super chat in tribute to the score this evening. In Iowa City, there is no offense, yet in heaven there is no beer. It's incredible how they keep winning these games. Go Hawks. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. And more power to them, right? However they can get the wins at this point. They got a chance to be 10-2 heading into the Big Ten championship game. You could argue they should be 10-1 right now, but Minnesota game aside, they are 9-2 right now. John, appreciate the super chat as well, John. Thank you, Deacon, for proving me wrong. Season full of abnormal adversity. Big Ten West champs. After everything, go Hawks. And Don Deacon was not great this evening. I thought he was pretty good in the first half. I thought he had a really nice pocket presence in the first half. Nice touchdown throw in the back of the end zone to Addison Estringa. Became a running back on a critical down in the red zone, which you like to see him do. I mean, tough, big body run. It looked like a Big Ben type of run, being willing to get up even with the big body. I thought in the second half, he kind of reverted back to some of his ways earlier in the year. And I just go back to the conversations I've had with you. I just wonder, what is the ceiling for consistency with a guy like Deacon Hill, who maybe doesn't have that? We talk about the groove throwing motion. He kind of throws from his hips. His mechanics aren't always the best. You just wonder, what's the upside, right? What's his ceiling for consistency? I just don't know that we're ever going to see that unless we see some of the mechanical issues fixed.
Well, near term, it's going to be hard to have much of an effect. Long term, it could certainly have a big effect. He could be an entirely different, I should just say, an entirely more accurate passer a year from now than he is now. It's going to be hard to change that, of course, over the next few weeks. I have to admit, I was nervous about some of those passes in the second half, in particular, that were thrown over the middle of the field. Several times there were balls that you had to be a little bit nervous as to whether or not we were going to get picked. Thankfully, we didn't. We had a ball that absolutely should have been a pick, of course. That was Castro. They had a ball or two that might have been picked also on the part of their defense. So, thankfully, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were dead even on turnovers. Nobody lost one on either side, I believe. Does that seem right?
I'm going to be able to tell you in 2 seconds. Turnovers on the day. Let's see here. Oh, I hate why do they place turnovers? Where do they place turnovers on the we always do this.
Let me put it up right quick. I've had more practice reading these than you, Corey, so maybe I can come up with it quickly.
Turnovers are always the ones that I don't understand why they place them where they do on this official box score.
Yeah.
No, I don't see any. John Paddock had 1 sack, no interceptions. Deacon Hill had no interceptions and 4 sacks. And there were no fumbles lost. There were a couple of fumbles in the game, but none lost.
Yeah, we lucked out on one. It was ruled a fumble. And thankfully, I believe, who got on the ball? I believe it was, who was it?
Well, one of them was Seth Anderson.
It was Seth. Yeah, it was Seth. Because there was a fight for the ball, right? They weren't far from being on it also.
Correct. Yep.
Boy, a really close game in a lot of areas. I just see even on first downs, very even in terms of total offense, of course. Well, my gosh, 280 versus 281. I didn't realize it was that close.
1 yard difference.
Yeah. Incidentally, their guy, even though he's an accurate thrower, 22 for 47. We had more high percentage passes, I think. And Deacon, as you probably know, ended up 19 to 29. There were a lot of good catches in there too. Another solid game for Caleb Brown. He's a guy, if you can get him the ball, he might make a guy, he won't necessarily make you miss. He may simply be strong enough to pull through your tackle. Very even game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, how about 10 targets for Caleb Brown? I would like to know the last time an Iowa receiver was in double figures for targets. My guess is it's been a while. Maybe Ragaini got there at some point.
I believe Nico might have had 11 last week, believe it or not.
Okay.
Or
Wow.
9, 10, 11 running there. Incidentally, Nico had another solid game. He's a veteran player. If you're not sure about who to give the ball to, it's always a pretty good thought to put it to Nico, because he's going to fight for the extra yardage. And especially on critical downs, you see maybe him being a little more of a force than what you might expect.
And although the offense, nobody's arguing the offense is great or that it's taken some massive step forward, there have been some improvements and maybe a one step back after 2 or 3 forward last week. One of the things we've been harping on for 3 years, Don, is wide receiver involvement. And you could argue that maybe Kirk and Brian's hands were forced as it relates to that facet of the game due to all the injuries at tight end. But you go back to some of these games early in the year where you're talking 2 or 3 catches for wide receivers and 5 or 6 targets. You look at the stat sheet tonight, you've got Caleb Brown with 7 catches, Nico with 5 catches, Seth Anderson with 2 catches, and collectively over 20 targets for your receivers. That's what you want to see. I mean, Addison Estrenga had a solid day with 7 catches again, just 24 yards, but 7 targets, 24 yards on 5 catches. Steven Stilianos drew a pass interference in the game as well. But I do give Brian and Kirk credit for this. They have involved the receivers a lot better than they were earlier in the year. And involving Caleb Brown at this point in the year is consequential because the transfer portal is an ongoing thing. And if kids aren't getting involved or don't feel like they're getting a fair shake, they're apt to leave. And I think they've at least made a case to retain Caleb Brown heading into next year. We'll see what happens the last few games.
That's a very true statement. How about this time of possession? Almost 34 minutes for us versus 26 for them. Did a good job of keeping the ball away from them. We barely won on critical downs. We're 6 out of 16. They're 5 out of 16. And we did lose on sacks, but we won in a lot of other areas. I'm pretty sure when we traded punts, we won again. I'll find it here in 1 second. What happened on the PAT? I wonder what happened.
It was blocked.
It was blocked. But Correct. It looked like it came out really low. Was it not that low even?
You know what? I will say this. Fox did not do a great job of showing that. In fact, they didn't replay it once before the commercial. They just went to the commercial break, came back, did show it later from one angle, but that's all we got. And in fact, I sent a quick message to our friend Kyle, who was at the game, and I asked him, was that blocked? Because I couldn't tell on the TV film at first.
Yeah.
And he confirmed that from his point of view, it was blocked, and then we saw it on the TV tape later.
Based on where we were seated, you really couldn't tell. It appeared that it was simply a really low kick. And I found myself wondering, because Drew is such a reliable kicker, was there a problem in spotting the ball? Did the ball maybe somehow get mishandled by the holder? I wasn't sure what happened. It's just, correct me if I'm wrong, has Drew ever missed a PAT in 2 years? I don't think so.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So it makes more sense now when you tell me that it's blocked. And of course, Drew's not happy. If it was blocked, then obviously from a PAT standpoint, when you're not that far removed from the uprights, there's no excuse to hit a low ball. And my guess is the ball might have come out a little bit low if it were blocked. Let's face it, I don't think they were determined. They're not thinking PAT block so much as they're thinking field goal block when it's from 53, because they know that kick has no choice but to be a little bit lower trajectory.
And frankly, an atypical miss from 53 for Drew Stevens. Typically, Drew Stevens is really solid from 50 plus, and missed one from deep today, Don.
Corey, you won't believe what I've got in my hands now.
I know exactly. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them. Are they cookies? I don't want to see them. Are they cookies? What do you? Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my goodness. Well,
now is Erica happy now? Incidentally, I didn't go out and buy this hat, nor did I own it. But one of Lisa's sorority sisters happened to think about finding it and bringing it with her this time. So here I am wearing my cowboy hat. Now, this is a cowboy from, I don't know, maybe Highland Park, which is a ritzy suburb in Dallas. I would be what they call a Rexall Ranger, which is, there's that old term drugstore cowboy in Texas. Somebody dressed in one of these would certainly be a Rexall Ranger. Now, Corey, do I have permission to take it off now, or do I have to wear it for a while?
Well, you do what you want, but I think people would like to see it on for a while. But you do you, Don. I'm just glad you weren't. I thought you were going to flaunt some of Lisa's famous cookies in front of me. So the hat is. I tell you, the only thing with the hat though is I'm having problems seeing. It's so bright.
Yeah. Alone is probably a good reason to put it aside. But for Erica's benefit, I did wear. I won't say my cowboy hat because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to claim to own this one. Maybe that'll inspire some cause.
All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Doug's been waiting on hold for a while. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Doug. How are you?
Good. It's my 50th time probably calling you, Corey, and my first time ever talking to Don. So
okay, well, this is perfect.
Well, I'm a proud Ames High alum right now with Joe Evans. I thought we had our only sack. Joe had our only sack. Joe had 3 pass breakups according to the stats. I just looked up on ESPN where he got his hand up, batted the ball down. Very proud of Joe. A shout out to Bruce Vertinen, longtime head coach at Ames High. I know he did a lot with Joe's development, and he did a lot for me 20 years ago when I was in school there. Don't know if you know Bruce, Don, but anyway, he's been there for a while. Coached like Aaron Greving and those guys. I don't know if you remember Aaron, but I was just very proud of seeing what Joe has done. He didn't have anyone interested 6 years ago. He was going to go to UNI or Western Illinois or somewhere like that. And Kirk said, "Hey, come on. We'll, he was a middle linebacker quarterback,
Yeah, you got to figure out where to play him.
Well, that's what other teams, that's what Kirk said to him, we're going to find a place for you. You're a good athlete, a good person, a good player. And that's what Kirk does. He finds a place for a lot of those guys. Dallas Clark, I believe, maybe you guys brought him in 99. I don't know. Dallas Clark was a middle linebacker too and turned into a tight end.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something you guys do, and it's something what Iowa does. You find a guy that was maybe a quarterback that can't quite throw, but you put him in at free safety, and he does awesome. But very proud of Joe. That one Deacon Hill pass that was a fumble that Anderson got, I could have sworn that was a pass, not a fumble. But that's good for all. I'm happy.
There's another example. There's another example, and our caller on the phone line, we're going to put you on hold. There's another example of my issue with replay, and I ranted about this the other day with Mark Rogers. You cannot tell me that was conclusive. You cannot tell me that it was conclusive. And the officials, not only do they not, I'm fine with them coming back and saying the call stands, but they come back and say the call's confirmed. That's bogus. Yeah. No. Don't tell me it's confirmed.
My question, though, again, I'm the basketball guy. Like I said, it's the first time talking to Don. You can advance the ball on a fumble like that? Wouldn't that go back to? I'm happy with.
Well, you're certainly entitled. You're certainly entitled to try to repossess it, right?
That's what Anderson did.
Yeah, exactly. We picked up about 10 yards.
It became a first down.
Yeah, it became
really
a
first down.
Yeah,
we were lucky to get the ball back, and Seth really did a nice job of hustling to get there. But Corey, your point is, it appeared to you that the arm did start forward with the ball.
Me too.
I don't know that I would have overturned it, Doug. I think I probably would have said the call stands because that was the call on the field. And Kirk talked about it during his press conference this past week, and I would, I know that was in their favor, but again, to me, it's violating the principles of review. But anyways, I know that's the last thing on people's minds tonight.
Well, I probably had many other things I want to ask Coach, but again, because like I said, believe it or not, I'm a huge, like I said, I'm a 90s fan, not just with basketball nostalgia, but I was going to say, why didn't you get the ball to Tim Dwight more?
That is somebody, Don, that we need to get on this show sometime. We need to see what Timmy's doing. I know he's busy with solar panels, but I'm sure
Matt Sherman. I don't know if Don remembers. Matt was my quarterback when I was a sixth grader. So
of course I remember Matt Sherman.
Oh, duh. But as I feel about Jess and the basketball guys, I love Tim Dwight's still my number one Hawkeye. He still is over all the basketball guys, Corey. And you know how much I love Iowa basketball. Tim Dwight was amazing. I guess I will share a Tim Dwight story. He returned a kick in a Super Bowl for a touchdown. It's like Denver. It was 1999. Okay.
Opening kickoff.
Was it?
Opening kickoff, as I recall.
It might have been, but
I believe it was.
I remember I wasn't in the room. And I went to the bathroom. My dad still does this to the day. He'll start screaming and cheering, and I'll run out. I ran out, because I didn't know what was going on. And he goes,
"He's just pranking you, though."
Yeah, but most of the time he does it now. He's just pranking me. So if I try not to leave the room because he'll pretend cheer and get me to run out the room. And
I got a feeling your dad and I would get along great because it sounds like he's got a great sense of humor.
Oh, he does. We've been watching Iowa games. He's been watching since before you guys came in '79. Grandma and Grandpa listening on 1040 WHO. I have a question for you, and this might make you guys look. You guys were in '79 choosing between Oklahoma State and Iowa to go to. Hayden said this once, and
it was actually a third school too. It was Ole Miss.
Yeah, and he said he put it to a vote. And then he goes, I don't care what you guys say. They're saying a dictatorship will go to where I want. Is that true or not?
Well, I think we all had a chance to express ourselves, but we never felt it was necessarily going to be a democracy. Let's face it, the boss can still decide something different than the coaches. But to Coach Fry's credit, he said, let's go to Iowa. The vote favored Iowa, so here we went.
Well, again, if you didn't want to go with them, you didn't have to. It's a free country, but you made the right choice. My other thing was people. You were talking about hidden yardage, or what do you call it with the punts and get field position? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, when you're trading average starting field position.
Isn't that something that Bill Snyder and K-State really made famous when they started turning the program around? Wasn't that a Bill Snyder thing?
I did analytics for Kansas State a couple of years, but now I'm just working strictly with Iowa. That's it. It's too much work to do 2 or 3 different conferences at once. I don't recall, I did Big 12 analytics for at least 2 or 3 years. I don't recall exactly where average starting field position was from one year to the next. But in general, I'll say this. All conferences have a different profile. Mm-hmm. Right now in the Big Ten, it's not as important as it has been in the past to win on turnovers. Let's face it, turnover margin is a nice stat. You want to win on turnovers, of course. But right now, it doesn't have the highest winning percentage associated with it. Number one is actually explosive plays.
Yeah, sounds right.
Incidentally, explosive plays, as Corey knows, have been trending upward in recent years. They're becoming more important with each passing year.
Well, I'm going to let you off with this. But what he just said, you need to get some of because you did with basketball, James Moses and Les Jepson. You need to get a couple of the football guys in too for a little panel there. Like I said, Matt Sherman or Tim Dwight, people like that I grew up with, or Tavian Banks. I know has done other podcasts. People like that.
Wait. I've had Tavian on the show before.
You've had Tavian on the postgame?
Not on the postgame, but I had him on a live show. I had him on a live show, Doug.
Well, again, I'm usually just doing basketball. So, but
here's one thing you might not know. I have a long history with Joe Evans' family because his dad, Spence, was a quarterback for us years ago.
I actually knew that. So, yeah. Like I say, I love Ames, but I've always been a Hawkeye. So it was sometimes hard because like you might know this a little bit. I always joked because living in Ames, the rowdiest kids were the coaches' kids. So I was wondering if your kids were the coach rowdy kids, because going to Ames High School, that was always our joke that I don't want to name coaches because you probably know them, but their kids were always the rowdiest kids.
Well, is one of them playing quarterback for the Bengals?
Well, both Jamie and Dan were pretty good kids. So, but yeah, I went to school with Dan, and like I said, it's interesting going to a college town and growing up around coaches' kids, because you really have to be. There's a lot of fundamentals that you have to have as an athlete, and they know their stuff. So,
right.
It was great talking to you, Don, for the first time. I look forward to maybe calling again. I do know stuff about football, Corey, so I ain't scared to call about football. So even if people in the chat don't think I know anything.
Doug, thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Doug. Thank you, sir. All right. A couple of comments here. Kathy in the chat. Before there's any thought of letting Brian keep his job, ask yourself this. Have you ever been given 6 years to prove you can do your job, let alone a below average job? And I want to make clear, I made a comment about Brian and how the team embraced him after the game. I thought that was a great moment, Don, and it proves that he's got a lot of players that do care about him. And obviously he cares about those players. Just talk about what it was like for you as a coach, former coach, and somebody who's a good friend of Kirk Ferentz's, to be able to watch the players and how they reacted to the win, not only for the team, but for Brian. Even though the offense wasn't great today, boy, the players really rallied around Brian.
Well, the football team, it really is a big family. The culture that we have is the right kind of culture. And it's not surprising to me that players and coaches, have a special appreciation for each other. And that certainly applies to Brian too. I know this, when the news broke about Brian and talking with Kirk, I let him know, Kirk, I'm so sorry that this has played out like it has. But I even said this. I said, I think I'm like most Iowa fans. There's nothing I'd rather see than Brian finishing his last year of coaching at Iowa back in Pasadena. And I meant that as sincerely as I could. And I am thrilled that that's going to happen this year, because Brian can take a lot of satisfaction in helping us to get back to Pasadena, because he certainly helped us.
Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers is here. He says, if you told me Stevens was going to miss kicks, I would have gotten my pick right. Okay, so apparently Mark had, let's do the math on this, would that be 19? 19 to 13? Was that the prediction, Mark?
Mark predicted 19-13?
Apparently. I will say our guy Kyle, who's in the queue, I give him credit. He sent me this video ahead of time. As a lot of people know, Kyle is a golfer, and he'll explain this here in a little bit, but they golfed. I'll try to explain this and not butcher it, and then we'll go to our calling line. But, Don, they golfed yesterday. He and his buddy golfed yesterday, and based on I want to get this right. Based on birdies, pars, bogeys, double bogeys, they each represented. He represented Iowa. His friend represented Illinois. And based on their 4 holes that they played, the prediction from he and his buddy was 15 to 13 Iowa.
And you expect me to believe that?
I'm going to show it. I can share it on. I'll share the screen. It's pretty incredible.
Well, let me share one with you.
Listen, I'll share the screen, Don, because it's pretty freaking uncanny. And when he missed that extra point, Kyle had to point it out to me, because I wasn't thinking about it. Of course, I predicted 13-7, which I'm thinking, that's pretty close. But he hit it on the head, 15 to 13. A bit of an unorthodox score.
Kyle has a little other information that apparently he didn't share with you. Are you aware of what happened last night?
No. What?
We are leaving the basketball game, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and his introduction was, Coach, it's Kyle from the show. And I said, Kyle, I didn't expect to see you here tonight. And he, of course, we talked for a little bit, and My only regret is I didn't mention to him, Colin, you're taller than I thought you were. I've only seen you on a computer screen, so I'm surprised you're as tall as you are. But
well, you're a little. In all due respect, you're a little taller than I expected you to be when I first saw you in person. I think you said the same thing about me, right?
You were taller than I expected. You're right.
We're all taller than we expected.
Oh, anyway, what a wonderful young man, and that's amazing that yesterday how the golf played out. Is he saying 15 strokes versus 13? Is that what he's saying on those 4 holes?
Let's come back to this, Don, because we got a couple other callers who have been waiting on hold, but we're going to come back to that. I am intrigued by it, but let's come back to it here in just a second. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, and thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Jake from Minneapolis.
Hey, Jake from Minneapolis. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Feels great to win the West. My Gopher fans were giving me a lot of crap after they took the pig from us, so it feels good to get that West championship. I have a question for Coach, and Corey, you can answer too. When the other team's punting to us and we're calling a fair catch at like the 5-yard line, what's like the strategy there? Because I feel like with how just brutal our offense has been this year, I feel like take the risk and let that one go, and maybe you get the ball at the 25 instead. I don't know. What's your opinion on that one?
I agree with you. Just so, before you answer, Don, I agree with you. I made a tweeted out at the very end before Caden popped off that return to near midfield. Do not call for a fair catch at the 7 or inside the 10 whatsoever, because we're not driving 90 yards. I'll roll the dice of ending up at the 1 or the 2 with the chance that we end up at the 20, 25-yard line. Is it 20-yard line? I always forget on touchbacks in college.
20.
Is it
20. I think college.
Well, here's the truth. You know, if you're on the receiving end of a Torrey Taylor punt, and we're talking about a ball that's spinning backwards, you're aware, of course, that it may take a really dead hop on the goal line or near the goal line.
Sure.
We've seen that any number of times. But that's entirely different than a conventional punter that's spinning the ball downrange. That ball is more likely to bound on into the end zone. Furthermore, in the old days, we used to say, heels on the 10, do not back up. Well, if you're playing on a grass field, the ball is likely to be deadened more when it hits the ground. So you got a better chance to kill it inside the 5. I think you're exactly right. On artificial turf, especially if it's a conventional punt, a ball that's spinning downrange, it's very likely to bound into the end zone.
And now let me just clear something up here real quick. It's 20 when it's a punt, but it's 25 off a kickoff touchback, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
A touchback, as we call it, maybe they're both referred to as touchbacks, but on a punt, a touchback goes back to the 20.
Yeah, and that's 20 yards of difference right there. And if you let it drop and it stays right there, I mean, just tip the cap. But I don't know. I just think even Cooper DeJean even sometimes caught some inside the 10. And I always thought the rule was, like Don said, heels on the 10. If you got to back up, just let it go. So I don't know. But
well, in recent years, I think most people would say heels on the 8, do not back up. Obviously, we're comfortable even with Cooper fair catching on the 5, I guess. He's done it any number of times. But honestly, you could argue, why don't we roll the dice and see if it'll bounce into the end zone? Because the 20 looks a lot different than the 5. Frankly, if you're on the -2 or the -5, they're both terrible field positions, so does it really matter too much if you fair catch it on the 5 versus letting it bounce and they kill it on the 2? Neither one's worth a damn. You know, you don't like either one. Incidentally, we do practice what we refer to as the black zone on the field is when you're backed up inside your 10-yard line. And the real basic rule for black zone offense, you absolutely, and these plays are all scripted long before the game. These are the plays you're going to run if and when you're backed up. And the plays are designed simply to be guaranteed to generate a first down on 3 downs, of course. You got to get a first down off that goal line because you don't want that punter to be standing in the back of the end zone without at least 15 yards to work with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so much bad things that can happen when you're catching a fair. Like, I think we caught one today on the 6th, and I was just like, what are we doing here? So, last thing I'll say is just seeing Kirk hug Brian and being emotional. It was so good to see. I feel for the guy, and I'm so happy for him and the players. So I'm excited to see next week against Nebraska and the Big Ten Championship. So thanks for letting me call in, guys.
Thank you, sir. Call. And yeah, real quick, Don, I know there's comments in the chat about potentially starting, or excuse me, not starting a majority of your starters against Nebraska and resting people. That's not how college football works. That's certainly not how Kirk Ferentz works.
I can guarantee you we're not going to do that. Well,
nor should they. Nor should they. There's not enough games in these kids' lives in college to be doing that. They're not.
I'm pretty sure Kirk feels a lot like I do, because I made the comment 8 days ago. Maybe we can afford to lose another game, but let's not even think that way, because this great conference, the Big Ten, deserves a great championship football game. And for us to be a great representative of the West, we need to find a way to be 10-2. And it looks like we're in the process of doing that. Now, next weekend is going to be another tall hill to climb, but there's no doubt in my mind we're going to show up and we're going to do everything we can next Friday.
Okay, comment here by Steve in the chat. He says, the way Iowa players hugged Brian says to me that we may have more people leaving than we like. I don't agree with that. I don't have any inside information, but I think that's a lot of players rallying around a guy who loves this program, has put his heart and soul into the program for a number of years, and they're going to be close, Don. I don't think that you can determine that means a bunch of guys are going to be swarming to the portal when the season ends. Now, if somehow Kirk retires, sure. I mean, we could all see that happening, but no, I would not jump to that conclusion. And D wants to know, Don, if somehow, well, actually, he's just saying, Kirk, do you think he's Big Ten Coach of the Year right now? If he were to win the Big Ten championship, I think you make a strong case for that. But Don, does he have a case? I mean, look at what Northwestern, what they've had to overcome to get to bowl eligibility. I think it's going to be hard to top that.
I agree. I think Kirk certainly is. I think this is as good a coaching job as Kirk's ever done, I think. But having said that, it's pretty amazing that Northwestern is bowl eligible with a week left to play. You got to realize their coach lost his job in July. And this guy had never been a head coach before. Had only been on campus for 8 months or whatever. And now he's the head coach. Done a wonderful job. Kirk's done a wonderful job also. But let's not forget, Corey, I believe your prediction before the season was 10-2. And I will admit, you were thinking we wouldn't be hit with the injury bug as much as we have been. But the bottom line, it's easier to go 10-2 in the West than it is the East. I'll just say it that way. So we've taken good advantage of a schedule that was not as tough as last year. We didn't have Ohio State on the schedule. We did have Penn State, but last year we had both Michigan and Ohio State, didn't we?
Correct.
Yeah. So clearly this is a better schedule. We've taken good advantage of it.
And the West is putrid.
The West is not as good as the East. I'll be more political than you, Corey. Not as good as the East.
It's putrid. Anyways, let's go back to our well, actually, before we go to our call online, I want to give a special shout out to Tory Taylor. We could have gone a lot of different directions today with player of the game, and maybe the numbers, and he only had 2 punts inside the 20. Part of that is because they were down their best gunner. He had some beauties today. 51.6 average on 8 punts, over 410 yards on the day for Tory Taylor. And I kind of am throwing him a bone on this because, hey, he's a senior going through senior day. He's played his last game inside Kinnick. And Don, let's not forget, there have been a number of games where we've passed over his name for our RTI Threads player of the game. He has been so important to Iowa's success over these past 4 years now.
Let me make another comment about Tory today. Maybe you weren't aware, but I certainly was aware at least twice, if not maybe 3 times, it was a punt. And you've heard me say I'd like to see Corey. Corey needs to demonstrate this to the NFL anyway, that he can punt in a conventional way too. And he did that today, at least twice. I remember one of them vividly because it was 53 yards. It was fair caught, 53 yards with great hang time. The ball was up there a long time. That's what the NFL wants to see. Of course, they're also glad to have Torrey so capable of pooch punting too, as we call it, of sending the ball with a backward spin to die down on the goal line. He can do both. That's going to make him better than any other punter I think that's coming out.
It's a good segue into a plug for RTI Threads. I'm wearing this Cooper DeJean, the CD3 Laces Up shirt. And I said this earlier, Don, but you'll see when you watch the TV film back that like the first scene from Fox Sports 1 was some fans in the front row all wearing the Cooper DeJean logo, our RTI Threads apparel. And it was just cool. I mean, you feel so bad for Cooper DeJean with everything he's been through. Go back to what happened against Minnesota. He's been so consistent and important to victory, not only in special teams, but on defense. I'm sure leadership on and off the field. And so for him, his season to be cut short, it was just great to see them win. I want to say for him. I think this win encompasses a lot of different things for Brian, for the team, for guys like Cade McNamara, guys like Cooper DeJean, Luke Lachey, Eric, all these injured players. And Don, I'm assuming there is, even when you coached, there was maybe some of this that went on. When your teams, when you had years where some of your best players were dealing with a plethora of injuries, especially season-ending injuries, was there a sense of togetherness where your best teams with the best leadership came together and kind of ignited and played for those players who were down?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't doubt for a second that's happened this year too. Those players that have gone down with injury are so highly regarded within the team. It's only logical that the guys that are replacing them are highly motivated to not let them down. And I think you've seen that on the part of all kinds of players. It's just interesting to see. Here's a question for you, Corey. Did you on the copy day, Cooper on the line? Was he down there? I didn't think so.
You're breaking up quite a bit, Don.
Was he at the game?
No. He was not on the field. He was not on the field, and the reason he was not on the field is because they did not want to risk him getting hit. He had surgery yesterday. And that's Elliot Clough of Iowa's Rivals site reported that pregame that he ran into Cooper DeJean. It sounds like DeJean was maybe up in the box.
I figured as much, that if he was at the game, he was not on the bench.
Yeah. Again, CD3LacesUp.com for the Cooper DeJean line, and you can find Aaron Graves, Carson Shire, Aiden Hall, Zach Lutmer, all of their merch lines at RTIThreads.com. We appreciate RTI Threads. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach John Patterson. Who's on the line?
This is Randy Hansen again. I'm calling from Texas, and I just had a couple observations and a couple quick questions.
Okay.
But, just being from Iowa, so when you get down to Texas, your show is actually a lot more, it's kind of the go-to show. I'm just hoping you're having a lot of success with it because, if you want to get the real, I just like the stuff that you when you commentate. It's not the rose-colored glasses, but it's never personal. It's just factual. So it's a great show, and it's really good, for people that are out of state because this is where I go to get my information.
Well, I appreciate that.
So I hope your show is doing really well.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. I have a question. Were you from Tyler, as I recall?
Yeah. In fact, I was looking you up the other day, and I was just through your old town of Corsicana probably about 2 weeks ago. That town is absolutely blowing and going. Just expanding like you wouldn't believe.
Well, please tell me you stopped at the Collins Street Bakery.
Oh yeah, Collins State. In fact, we were at Collins State Bakery today. They put one up there on I-20, close to Tyler. But every time we go to Corsicana, we stop at the Collins State Bakery. That's just everybody goes there. That's a landmark. Anyways, I was just going to make one observation. It's not, this part's just not football related, but I was just listening to your show the other night, Corey, after Caitlin Clark's game against Kansas State. And I don't know if she was sick or whatever, but she just seemed out of it the whole game. But I think the more they got all over her, the more frustrated she seemed to get. I don't think she put those shots up with any authority whatsoever, with the idea that they were going to go in. But the biggest thing was her turnovers were awful. I mean, I think there were 16 turnovers in the game. She probably had 5 or 6 of them, and there was no excuse for any of them. And I love Caitlin Clark. I'm just saying, for some reason, she just didn't play with any confidence. And the rest of the team just didn't really step up either. But it was a good show. I was just making that observation. Those turnovers were really bad. But my question on today's game is for the coach. When it seemed like Illinois, every time they were in like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, you knew they were going to do a little 5-yard out or a 5-yard in. That's just all they were doing. I was just waiting for Iowa to pick one and take it to the house. But they always played off of them, just enough to let them get that. And I'm just wondering, from a coaching standpoint, in any game, I mean, it's like we were sitting on the couch like, man, they're going to do a 5-yard out. They're going to do a 5-yard in. But we just seemed to play. We were going to let them have it, make the tackle. But do coaches during the heat of the game, do they see these things that are going on and say, hey, we're going to jump this route. We're going to get one? Because we could have got them. That was just my thinking. And I'll, just before you answer, just getting back to punters, the best punter I've ever seen came out of Iowa, and that was Reggie Roby. I don't think I've ever seen anybody punt like that guy. That guy was spectacular. But anyways, that's just what I had. And that was my question for the coach. But man, I love this show.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate the phone call, sir. Don, you have some comment on that?
Well, let's face it, you've got your full-time coaches, but as you know, Corey, there are a lot of other guys that are working for Iowa football. I wouldn't expect that Phil Parker would necessarily pick up on the fact that this is what we're getting on 3rd and medium, but there should be somebody to alert him. Hey, coach, just so you're aware, we've had whether it was an outside receiver on a simple stop route, or maybe a slant. They ran a few slants, or a stick route on the part of an inside receiver, or what some people call a flat route. These are all throws that are designed just to get 5 yards. But even having an idea that they're coming and defending them are still 2 different things, because people also run out and go. They also run a stick and go, if you will. They fake a short route and then run deep. And obviously, if you give that up, now you're giving up a chunk of yardage. So we tried to jump those throws, but we couldn't get to them quite quickly enough. But I do give Paddock a lot of credit for the ball comes out pretty quick when he's throwing those. And of course, those receivers have good hands. So accurate throw, a very catchable ball. Oftentimes they end up with it.
Don, can I say this? And it's easy to say this when, a guy throws. How many passes did Paddock have today? He threw the ball, let's see here.
47 times.
47 times. So it's easy to say this, I guess, when a guy throws the ball 47 times. But I think he might be the most impressive quarterback we have seen against Iowa. And that includes Drew Allar at Penn State. Just from performance-wise, obviously he's got a lot less to work with than Penn State. Isaiah Williams is really good. But I was impressed with Paddock, and I'd be surprised if they go back to Altmaier, barring an injury to Paddock.
Yeah, Paddock was incredible. Well, let's just remind everybody, a couple of weeks ago at Minnesota, he was on the field. His first snap is 4th and 11. What does he do? He throws for 15. And then 2 more passes put him in the end zone for the winning touchdown. And then he follows that up with a great performance against Indiana. So I would have been shocked to start the game based on all.
Okay, let's add in. I believe first of all, comment here. Question from Jack, and this is what we do on this show, Don. When people ask, why can't I get this comment up on the screen? Jack wants to know, is Tom going to be joining us tonight? Well, since you asked, in the last 3 seconds, Tom just swooped in and granted Jack's wish. Tom, good to see you, sir.
Hi, Coach.
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Coach. Good. Kirk was long time to get to us tonight, so
I'm not surprised. My only regret about doing this show, Corey, is I could not be in the locker room. Because in other big games and other years, I've been in the locker room after the game. So I passed all that up, Corey.
Would not have blamed you.
I will tell you that. I will tell you that Kirk got a game ball tonight from Phil Parker after the game. I think it was officially passing Bo Schembechler, but it was probably maybe a little bit more than that, to be honest. But it obviously a pretty emotional moment. Saw a really emotional moment with Brian Ferentz. I think they caught some of that on TV, obviously with the hugs with Kirk, but then it looked like he got like a Gatorade or a water bath or something. And I was standing by the tunnel, and he was grabbing various people, and he was not the first guy through. The players had all pretty much gone through, but Cooper DeJean coming through on crutches, and he had a long embrace with Brian Ferentz, Cade McNamara, Eric All, both really long embraces. Dallas Clark grabbed Brian, and they had a really long embrace. A lot of tears being shed, and boy, the mixed emotions that the Ferentz family, kind of writ large, must be feeling tonight is something, really something.
I'm guessing that Kirk may have gotten a little emotional even during the press conference, or were the tears kind of out by then, Tom?
I think he'd worked all that out at that point. We tried. We asked him some questions that usually trigger waterworks, and I think he had gotten through all that. So yeah, he talked about Brian and just the emotions, and he goes, well, I'm proud of him as a dad, and think he's a heck of a coach, and those sorts of things. So it was just, I think, emotional moment for him. Excuse me. It was just a tough time for him, but also an exhilarating time for him because of what this team has accomplished. And I've been doing this, covering this team since 02, 03 era, and I'm not sure there's been a team. 04 comes to mind with a lot of adversity, but I don't think 04 had as much adversity as the 04 team had adversity at one position, really, at running back, where they just kept losing running backs and had to go with Sam Brownlee. This team lost their starting quarterback, lost their two best receivers, happen to be tight ends, lose your best defensive back, an All-American, and your best punt returner, maybe the best punt returner in the country. And yet you show up every Saturday when they ring the bell and get after it and find a way to win. That's some coach. I think that the term is resiliency, right?
Yep. And you've heard me say before, Corey, football is just team sport there is, because it takes a lot of people doing things right. And we're going way beyond 22 starters. Let's face it, an average game, you travel with 70, I think, in the Big Ten. I don't think that's changed.
Yeah.
But out of those 70, I guarantee you 50 of them are playing a significant role in the game, if not more.
I was really impressed also with just the way that Iowa responded. I mean, you lose a Cooper DeJean on Wednesday, and that can rock a team. That can knock you off kilter. And it didn't with this team. They just came out. I don't know how much they caught on TV, but before they go back into the locker room, they always, or when they come out of the locker room, actually, Joe Evans gathers everybody around, and he gave probably a 3 to 5 minute pep talk, I guess, for lack of a better term, very animated before the game. And we talked to him about it, and he just kind of said, we've overcome a lot. Let's get this one. We get one more here. Let's get this win. And he did, and that listening to Joe today was pretty cool, because just sharing his thoughts on Noah Shannon being able to be out there with them, and long shot Hawk, as Kirk smoked that cigar. He had a cigar with him at the podium and talked about Red Auerbach and how Red used to light those victory cigars. And he was not lighting it up yet. So, but he, I think, might be taking a puff or two off of it while he downs his St. Pauli Girl and his Ben and Jerry's, and enjoys the little fun tonight.
Is Kirk a Scotch guy, Tom? Do you know?
No, he's a beer guy.
Oh, he is a
St.
beer
Pauli Girl. Yeah, St. Pauli Girl used to be his beer. I don't know if he's moved on from St. Pauli Girl.
Why don't you guys say he's an ice cream guy? Because I know
he is an ice cream guy. He's a Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's is his go-to. The Cherry Garcia is one of his favorites. Yeah, know that for a fact. Oh, we lost Corey. Don, I think you and I are in charge now.
We got to carry the show now, Tom. It's up to you. What question do you have that you'd like to ask me?
What did you see on the play with that Caleb Johnson went on the touchdown run? I thought that was a really interesting play. And
we haven't talked about that play yet.
Addison Ostringa with a great that was the kind of the one that the Addison Ostringa blocked in the second level was, I thought, the key to getting that to the end zone.
You know what I thought was interesting? If you notice throughout the game, Tom, they played a lot of man free. And you know what I mean by man free. Corey, you know what I mean by man free also. The unusual thing about their man free, that safety was at least 20 yards deep, sometimes 20, 22 even. Here's my point. When Caleb broke the line of scrimmage, all of a sudden it's him and one tackler. And the truth is, he was given a chance to get out of the gate, so to speak, because that free safety was so deep that he had a chance to get up ahead of steam, if you will, working his way down the field, and the guy simply underestimated his speed, as we've seen other people do. He's a little bit of a long strider. He's a little faster than what they realized. And sure enough, that free safety took a poor angle, and it was over.
Yeah, that seemed to be such a big play for Iowa to be able to get over that hump, and it just felt like once they made that play that it was probably over. I'll tell you, it was nerve-wracking though seeing Drew Stevens miss a field goal, and then miss the extra point gets blocked. I mean, that's just, you immediately thought, boy, Illinois is just going to march down and score. But I liked what Iowa did defensively. They just sort of kind of played contain on the pass rush and get their hands up. And Joe Evans got his hand on a ball there on fourth down to kind of seal that one up.
Yeah, third and fourth down. If you'd have told me they're going to throw in third and fourth down and the ball's never going to make it across the line of scrimmage, I would have thought, are you kidding? That's not going to happen. But it did.
Can you talk about the progress Deacon's made? Because I think he's really made a ton of progress.
Well, a ton of progress. I don't know if I'd go that far, Tom.
Okay, a good amount of progress from where he started.
He's made some progress, absolutely. You heard me say a week ago he played without question his best game. I don't know if today he played better than last week or not. Hard to know just sitting in the stadium watching the game. Because, frankly, some of those throws that were thrown over the middle part of the field scared the devil out of me a few times today. And luckily, none of them ended up in the wrong hands. But I was nervous with some of those balls. That's for sure. He's understanding touch better for sure than a month ago. He showed good touch a week ago on any number of throws. He had good touch on some passes today. When he was working against man coverage, even though the coverage was pretty tight, I'm thinking back to Ragaini on those crossing routes.
Yep.
You know, they were throwing. He was starting on the left and going all the way across the field, catching the ball near the boundary on the right, and the man coverage was in hot pursuit, and he was definitely in the neighborhood, but he couldn't get to the ball simply because the ball had good accuracy and was on target. Incidentally, some really nice catches by not just Nico, but some other guys too. Seth had a nice catch, or is that the one they reversed? I thought that wasn't it Seth one time?
Yeah, Seth Anderson. Yeah, he had that one reverse.
What did the replay show? It looked to me like it was caught on replay.
No, it was
No,
not.
he dropped it. It slipped through his hands.
He dropped it.
Yeah.
Well, looking in the stadium, you really can't tell very well. But I couldn't help but notice it happened over in front of Brett, and Brett got a good look at it, and that's when they took the timeout, right, and said, "You got to take a look at this," and they were right.
Yep.
Tom, a couple questions here in the chat
Sure.
that were asked, and I think you're probably a good candidate to answer these questions. Charles wants to know about Logan Jones. He was out there today, and did he make it through the game?
No, he came out. It was a quick to the sidelines from what I could tell. He did start, but I don't think he lasted real long.
I was going to say, I believe it was in the first half, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, it was in the first half when Ellsbury went in for him, and I saw DeYoung in there. I don't know if Colby got dinged up, but yeah, and I asked Kirk after the game about injury updates, and he spent his time just talking about how Tyler Ellsbury's really improved the last 3 weeks when he's gotten called upon, and that so I don't think he really wanted to answer my question at this point, but that's okay.
We do know Vines is hurt. I know that's a question from Kevin in the chat. He's still down.
Yes.
And I don't frankly know when he gets healthy, if he gets healthy, Tom.
Caleb Brown's ahead of him now.
Yeah. Does he have a spot when he comes back? I mean,
he's probably behind the top three right now.
Yeah.
There
was a rumor going around earlier in the week, Tom, that Cooper DeJean got hurt.
Get hurt on offense.
Playing offense.
Get hurt on
firmness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Of course he did.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom, you've confirmed that, right? It's not hearsay.
It's not hearsay. No, 100%.
Can you confirm whether or not he was running as a Wildcat quarterback?
That I don't know.
Okay. That I found a little bit harder to believe, but again, I don't know. So, and this is a question directed towards me, but I think this is good for both of you. I want to dispel this rumor. I don't know how. Is it David Ray? I haven't pronounced his last name.
David Rye.
Rye. I don't know why, Charles, with all due respect, I don't know why Charles Rye would be a candidate for the offensive coordinator position at Iowa. He's an analyst on the Tampa Bay Bucs staff right now. He was, I think, OC at Vandy for like 1 year and lost his play calling duties.
Yep.
No, Don. I don't know anything about David Rye. Maybe you know him personally, Tom, but no. Don?
No.
Yeah, we need to look outside of just people that have direct ties to Iowa. Say it that way. There's a really big pool of great candidates out there. We should not restrict our search.
Tom, was there any mention of officiating tonight? I know Kirk really got worked up a couple of times on the sideline.
Nothing on officiating. That got put in the back burner. If they lost this game, we're probably talking about officiating. But because I thought the call on Quinn Schulte, I mean, what are we doing here? Are we still playing football? Or are we going to play flag football? That was just a good, clean football hit. That's all it was. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
There is this rule about driving people into the ground, right? But
you're a human and you hit them, you fall them, you're falling down.
I know. I agree with you. I agree with you.
It's ridiculous.
It's putting an unfair onus on defenders. Couple things before I let you slide here, Tom. So, what is the approach? Somebody kind of cynically asked earlier, does Kirk rest all the starters? He was never going to do that. Did he joke about it during the press conference?
No, but he said he might give him a little teeny more time for the 24-hour rule this week, which is funny because they're playing on a short week too.
Right,
So,
short week.
but
So
I think he's going to let them enjoy this, and he should.
I'm just curious, based on what you've seen with Kirk Ferentz over the years, we haven't really seen a situation quite like this, although they did. I'm trying to think back, 2015, they were undefeated and playing for a college football playoff berth. They're not really realistically playing for a college football playoff berth this year. But I would presume there's not going to be any difference in approach as far as personnel and rotations, etc., or even playing guys who are 80 to 90%, but not completely healthy, as there would any other week. Is that fair, Tom?
Yeah, I would think they're going to just go with the guys that would normally play, and they're going to try and put the puzzle together and go out there and win a football game. It's a trophy game still. You got to remember that. And I think they like to collect the trophies, and that one's not in the building right now. So I think they'd like to get that back in the building. So
yeah, I don't think Kirk. I'm guessing Kirk has a lot of respect for Matt Rule, as you do, Don. But that has to be a game a year ago that they only use the term revenge, but that's got to be a game they won back. So, just real quick, Tom, I'm curious if there was anything more mentioned regarding Cooper DeJean. Any other update? I know Kirk talked about Cooper on the radio show with Gary Dolphin on Wednesday. But were there any questions about Cooper's health after today's game?
No, he's done for the year. I mean, that's just, there's no bowl game. There's nothing like that.
So the bowl game, I'm just curious because the 6 to 8 week outlook that we were given initially would put you kind of borderline bowl game, but that's completely out of the question right now.
Yeah. He had surgery yesterday, is what I was told, and it's probably more further than 8 weeks, I think. And there's just no sense for him to play a bowl game. There's really no benefit to it.
Yeah.
Just because he's going to the NFL and he needs to be as healthy as he can. He's done all he can do at Iowa. And if they were going to play for, say, a national title, then maybe you have a conversation. But to play in the Citrus Bowl, no, not really. Not worth it. It'd be crazy to do it.
Well, Tom, I wish I had more questions for you, but it's kind of one of those nights where it's like a lot of self-explanatory things, and it's just an odd night, a very typical Iowa night with, an underperforming offense, but a team that finds a way to win despite adversity, and a great storyline for Brian and for Kirk. And
I see somebody asking about Ryan Grubb. I do know that they've reached out to Andy Ludwig, the OC at Utah. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. We'll see.
The comment here in the chat about Ryan Grubb, that they have contacted Ryan Grubb, you're not aware of.
You know what I think is going to happen with Ryan Grubb? I think Ryan Grubb's probably going to get a head coaching job in the Mountain West or something. So that's what I think.
Boy, I don't know. Mountain West, you don't think he's a Power 5 candidate right
maybe
now?
maybe higher than that, but we'll see. I would think, I heard his name mentioned with San Diego State. That's just kind of as far as I could go, where I've heard his name come up. I don't think he's going to get like Texas A&M. I don't know that he's a cultural fit for Mississippi State, and they're probably going to go for a sitting head coach. So, but we'll see.
Tom Kager at HawkeyeReport.com. Anything else for Tom, Don, before we let him slide?
Can't think of anything.
No, Coach, it was good to see you Monday.
My pleasure. I was glad to be there. Corey's not aware, but Tom spoke at the quarterback club luncheon on Monday. And I told Tom the truth. I said, Tom, I don't attend all the time, but I'm attending today to support you because you're the featured speaker.
I appreciated that too. That was awesome.
It was my pleasure to be there.
Well, safe travels back to the Quad Cities, Tom, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Comment here in the chat from Alex. Mike Devlin and Mike Ferroni want to say hi to Coach P, but they don't have the show number. The show number It's 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. TCU Hawkeye 22 is here. What's up,
Hey,
man?
Corey. Don, how are y'all doing tonight?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Happy about the win. Halfway through the fourth, I was a little upset. I haven't talked to you guys since the Minnesota. I called after the Minnesota game with the Cooper Jean punt return. So I was a little fired up about the Quinn Schulte. I don't know what they call it, roughing the passer. Tom mentioned it, and I said the same thing. If we're going to call that a penalty, we might as well just start playing flag football, because I think Schulte's listed 6 foot, 6'1", 190. I don't know how big that Illinois quarterback is. He's not that big, and typically you see that in the NFL when you have a 6'3", 300-pound defensive lineman, put all his weight on the quarterback when he's going down. That was a tough one to see, but the guys really rallied tonight. KJ had that big run for 30 yards, and all things considered, when you're a team like Iowa and you play in the margins, it was great to see them pull it off. I don't think too many Hawk fans had a realistic optimism thinking that we'd be able to pull off scoring a touchdown in the final 8 minutes with the offense that we had seen previously, but it was good to see. From your guys' side, it seems like we're getting the ball to the playmakers more. I apologize, it's been talked about previously. I got on about 10 minutes ago, but getting the ball, the OSU transfer, quick little shots out to the side, really simple plays with low risk, but with the ability of the athlete that he is to make a play on the ball. It's frustrating to see that in game 11, where it felt like the first 7 games of the season we probably had that ability, but for one way or another we got away from it. I know the Vines injury helped us get Caleb Brown more involved in the offense, and unfortunately it's a net gain that we actually see him. I think he finished with 7 catches for 71 yards, and that type of production we haven't seen too much from the wide receivers this year. So a lot of positives to pull from the game. Ostrenga, I think he's shown himself to be a capable tight end. I don't know if he started off the year 3rd or 4th on the depth chart, but nice to see him being able to make an impact. But Don, what do you see moving into the Nebraska Big Ten championship game from an offensive standpoint? Are we going to still see a similar offense of 3 yards in a cloud of dust and hopefully get some waggles and bootlegs with the quarterback, or do you see any sort of options of opening up the play a little bit more as we move forward?
Well, we've run quite a few nakeds, and you'll recall tonight we ran at least one too many because
Illinois
we rolled right, and they were sitting there waiting for us.
Yep.
I believe that ended up as a sack, as I recall. Yeah. I think in terms of Nebraska, first off, Nebraska, I don't know how tonight's going to play out for them, but in general, they've done a great job of messing up on offense. Defense is outstanding. So I would suspect we'll have a pretty conservative plan for them, realizing that we need to protect the ball, because if we do protect the ball, I could see us certainly being +2 or more on turnovers. Now, they may not turn it over once next Friday. But in general, they've turned the ball over a lot, as you know. So we should win on turnovers. That should be a key to the game. And of course, we can I'll play just about anyone in terms of field position, because our punting game is so strong. So we should win on field position and win on turnovers, and that should take us a long way. We need to do more than just that, of course. But the thing we cannot afford to do is go over there and beat ourselves, and that's not likely to happen, because that's not who we are. We don't beat ourselves very often at all. You can point out Minnesota as one of those cases, but in so many other games, we've done a great job of not beating ourselves, and I would expect we're going to do it again on Friday.
Yeah, I agree. I was hoping that we'd still see Sims as their quarterback. I haven't watched Nebraska play in I know they're playing decent tonight earlier against Wisconsin, but I know at the beginning of the year that Georgia Tech transfer at Nebraska was just a turnover waiting to happen. I was hoping that
he's been a turnover machine, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Every game I watched, he would fumble or at least a couple fumbles or a couple picks every game for the 3 or 4 that he was in consistently.
Yeah. Well, I do know that they played 3 quarterbacks last week, and I believe they turned it over 6 times, as I recall. And I wonder about the guy that replaced Sims. I forget his name. Kind of an unusual name. I wonder, is he healthy? He's the big, strong guy that can run and decent pocket passer too. But he's a good runner. He's a big, strong guy, and I can't remember his name. You guys help me out. What's his name?
I don't recall. I think it starts with an H.
I'm not sure either. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like Harburg or something.
Yeah.
But last week, I'm pretty sure that I know a third quarterback played. Incidentally, Corey, maybe know the answer to this. Isn't Purdy's brother? Isn't that his brother?
Right. Younger brother.
Yeah. Well, he plays a lot like his big brother, but obviously I don't know that he's got as good of skills as Brock does.
Yeah, I think typically Nebraska plays into our hands as their offense that they're running. I like Rule. I've seen a couple of his press conferences. It seems like a personality of a coach that you can kind of get behind compared to the previous coaches they've had in place.
I agree.
Taylor and Temple, he's done a heck of a job. I think give him a couple more years, he'll have a competitive program. But that team, the way they play, just kind of falls into the hands of our defense. And it's surprising, our defense has played so well, but we haven't had the type of turnover margins and, forced turnovers that our defense is typically capable of, but we've still played such a strong defense. And I think that says a lot about what Phil Parker's putting out there every week.
I made a comment before, and let's just take you back to the Rutgers game. Rutgers had third and medium out around midfield, or actually in plus territory a couple of times in the first half. And amazingly enough, they were content to run the ball, hoping for a first down. My point is they didn't want to take a chance in turning it over, so they ran the ball and failed and had to punt. And even then, though, we fair caught on the 5-yard line, on the 9-yard line. I think that we're going to beat Iowa by playing like Iowa. It didn't work for them because they kept waiting for Deacon to make a lot of mistakes. He didn't make that many. He had one huge mistake at the end of the first half, but in general, he did a good job protecting the ball.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot to take from this game today. The positives, I think Deacon started off strong. Had some, I don't forget what he started, 10 of 12 or was close to it. And I think there's some confidence to build off of. I think the offensive game plan in our Iowa world of offense is improving. I think we got 3 strong running backs. We got a capable tight end, and with the showing of our offense and the wide receivers that where we're going, I think there's a strong. I think we're going to be favored. I don't know by how much against Nebraska, and then hopefully we can make a competitive Big Ten championship game, depending on who comes out of Ohio State, Michigan next week.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't have too much to say tonight. I was pretty fired up a couple hours ago to talk about the defensive penalties that were called against us, but we'll take the W, and looking forward to next week. Thanks for your time, guys.
Guys, let me offer up one other observation about next Friday. The forecast high that I saw in Cedar Rapids, at least on Friday, was 32 degrees. So it's, winter's going to make an appearance maybe as early as Friday. And that'll be one more reason, I think, Corey, where you see a pretty conservative game plan on the part of both teams. I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. We've got Erica on hold. Erica, welcome.
Hello, good evening. How you doing?
Erica, were you tuned in earlier tonight?
Yes, actually, that was the first order of business I was going to address. I enjoyed seeing the cowboy hat. Disappointed only lasted about not even 5 minutes, but finally happened, and I think that tonight's the right night to bring that out, so thank you for doing that.
Well, I admit, when I put it on, I felt a little bit like a male hooker, I guess. I don't know what I felt when I felt a little bit dirty when I put it on, but anyway.
I guess that's what happens when you wear something with so much glitter, right?
That's right. Not part of my usual wardrobe.
Sorry.
Not part of my usual wardrobe.
Yeah, I would guess not. I would guess not. So just a few comments. I found the announcers a bit annoying tonight. I know someone else mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to get Coach's perspective on it.
You know, I haven't seen the game, of course. I was in the stadium, so
Oh,
I don't.
that's right.
Yeah, I don't really have any idea. Who did the game anyway? I know it was FS1, right?
It was FS1, yeah.
Yeah, Devin Gardner was the
I believe it was. I believe it was FS1. Is that right, Corey?
Correct. Yeah, Devin Gardner was the color guy.
Okay.
And
who was the analyst?
Devin Gardner. I'm sorry. Gardner was the Devin Gardner was the analyst. I don't know who the play-by-play guy was. I don't remember the guy's name, but I actually didn't think it was that bad. I'm sure Erica disagrees with me, but
yeah, I thought it was heavily, for the most part, they were very heavily biased towards Illinois. But, you know, that's okay. We still won. That's all right. I'll forgive them. The other thing I was going to ask was, who do you think might come back next year from the seniors? Because I kind of have a strange feeling that Jay Higgins might come back. And the reason I'm saying that, there's two reasons I'm saying it, actually. The first one, I saw a video on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. He was pretty emotional when he was walking into Kinnick. You know, they showed the usual clip of of the players walking in and, you know, their parents and all the supporters and that. And he was very emotional. And the second reason I think he may come back is because he said during, I think it was Tuesday, when they saw when, you know, the press gets to talk to Kirk and they usually have some players beforehand, he said that he would definitely look into it and, you know, listen to any, you know, I don't think he used the word offers, but he would be open, receptive to hearing any possibility about coming back. So I was just wondering what you thought of that.
Well, I suspect it'll simply hinge on exactly how he projects for the draft. So he'll know a lot more, of course, going forward. You can kind of test the waters, of course, and still come back. You simply got to be sure not to retain an agent. I don't think the rules have changed in that regard. So Jay knows exactly what the NFL thinks of him at this point. And I'm sure, one thing I'm sure of, he's not concerned about it right now.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot bigger fish to fry over these next 2 weekends than to worry about what might happen next.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I would imagine that these conversations might start happening a little bit, but I mean, I'm not behind the scenes. I wouldn't know. Corey, do you have an opinion on who might come back? Maybe Jay or somebody else?
I think Luke Lachey is coming back.
Yeah.
That's been said. I think that's likely. Don't shut the door on Cooper DeJean. Let me just say that. Don't shut the door on Cooper DeJean.
How are you so sure of that? Or is that just an inkling?
No, I didn't say I'm not sure on that. I said, I'm just saying, don't shut the door on Cooper DeJean. I think some people just assume he's gone. I mean, he's projected as a first-round pick, and it's going to be hard for anybody to turn down, you know, guaranteed $7 million signing bonus or whatever it is, whatever it would be. But I don't think that's a done deal. So that would be obviously the biggest one to follow. We know Cade's coming back. You know, Eric All, boy, I don't know. I'd have to also look at some of these guys, who has what eligibility. Obviously, Nico can't come back, so he's done. Right. Going down the list, I'm just trying to think of the other guys that were honored today. So Steven Silianos is also done, as far as I'm aware. So he won't be coming back.
I don't know that Joe Evans has an option of another year, does he? I'm not sure.
No, he's out of eligibility.
Yeah.
I'm really sad about that. I'm not going to lie. I think obviously he's a fantastic defensive player and he gets sacks for us and all that. So there's that. But as far as like his personality, I think he's such a good guy. I think he riles up the team and I think he's really going to be missed.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm just off the top of my head, those are the guys that come to mind. Like Chris Reams I'm sure he's not coming back. He hasn't played all year. Of course, he was suspended for much of the year due to the betting stuff. Dejan
Parker as well is out of eligibility, I think, and that's disappointing to me because he didn't even seemingly get a chance. So I don't know how badly he was injured because I heard rumors he had been injured. Could he apply for like a medical red shirt or anything, or is that out of the picture?
That's a great question. That'd be a better question for Kirk. If he's been hurt throughout and hasn't played due to injury, I'm guessing he probably could, but I don't know.
Okay.
Also, Drew says that this show is horribly boring.
Move along, Drew.
Bye-bye.
Drew, if you don't like it, guess what? No one's making you stay here, okay, buddy?
You know,
You can go ahead and leave. Bye.
I would only put that comment up when Erica's on here because I know Erica was just gonna rip him.
You think I'm that mean or something? I can be a very nice person. It's just when
Well, I'm
people
sure,
make
you know, I'm
stupid
sure you're
comments.
very nice, but you're not afraid to rip when it's necessary.
No, I'm not. I mean, I think I'm just an honest person. Look, I'm just very candid with people, and if they're acting the fool, I'm going to say it. Sorry.
Yeah, and thank you for the super chat, Erica. She asked earlier, Don, can we get Joe Evans, Jay Higgins, and Higginized? That's Jay's father, Roy, on the show. That would be good. I don't know Roy personally. I've never talked to Roy, never reached out to him, but I'm sure you could pull some strings with Joe Evans' dad. Of course, he was he principal at Ames High prior to his move to Eastern Iowa? I can't remember if he was superintendent or principal.
I think he was principal.
Okay, and I never had any connections with him either in the community when he was here. But yeah, that's definitely something we can look into, Erica.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think that if you were to message Jay's father, Higginized, I think he'd be very open to speaking to you and maybe getting him on the show. It's worth a try anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So anyway, that's about all I had to say. I really want to beat Nebraska next week because last year, I mean, that was just an embarrassment. So I think we need to get them this year. And I think the guys are going to be riled up still. So hoping for that. And also Nebraska's quarterback situation is less than ideal from the little I know about them. And Mordecai, when I talk about Mordecai Sims, he's another one who seems to turn over the ball. So hoping that he does that and that we win. And, you know, hopefully the defense looks good throughout next week. Because I will say during the first part of the game, I was a little confused about whether or not I was watching an Iowa defense. They were fine, but they weren't Iowa level, I guess is the way to say it. So that was a bit surprising to me, but I'm sure they'll, you know, they returned back to their normal selves towards the end. I'm sure it'll happen next week again that way. So thanks again for taking my call, and go Hawks.
Thanks, Erica. Go Hawks. And Don, what did Illinois do early that was so effective that, I mean, besides just passing a lot and, you know, when you don't have Coop on the field, it changes more than just that one matchup, right? Because it opens up the field for an offense and for a signal caller. But what did Illinois do effectively that enabled them to have the offensive success that most teams don't have against this defense?
Well, it was a little bit of a guessing game. You know, there's a time or two where they hit us with middle routes versus cover two. And there were other times, of course, where we did a good job of disguising coverage, but still, a good quarterback can still read what happens after the snap. And a lot of the time, we still rolled the safety down and went soft with the corners a lot. And when they had soft corner, they did a good job of throwing the ball underneath the soft corner. Our guys did not want to get beat deep. Obviously, they kept the ball in front of them. That's a trademark of our defense, of course, is to not give up a big play. And those corners did not give up a big play. They gave up some underneath catches, of course. But really, when you think about it, Corey, 47 attempts and you have a little over 200 yards to show for it, that's really not very good. You know, with that many pass attempts, you should have more yardage. I guarantee his pass efficiency dropped significantly tonight from what it was. So we did a good job of not giving up the big play. And we said going in, that's a key factor in the game. If we lose on explosive plays, we probably lose the game. We did not lose on explosive plays. I believe we were dead even on explosives. We did win for sure on super explosive. And that's a good stat to have on your side too.
Just so everybody's aware, we're going to be kind of going fast track on the last 15, 20 minutes of this show. I'm going to be selfish here. We're over 2 hours in. Iowa State and Texas, 6-3 at halftime over on Fox. And I'm watching my Dallas Mavericks right now in the corner of the screen. I'll admit that I'm multitasking. They're up 98-91 on the Bucks at Pfizer Forum up in Milwaukee. So I'm kind of intrigued by that as well. Anyways, there's a lot of I don't know what's the childish behavior in the chat tonight. What's that? I don't know what Kyle's doing as our mod. I don't know what he's just letting it. Kyle, you're just failing us. You're just letting it become a. No, I'm joking.
I'm logged in. So I have two different YouTube accounts now. I have one that I post my golf stuff on, and I'm not a moderator on that one. So I was trying to cruise through comments, and I realized I couldn't delete anything. So
it's become a total free for all in the chats.
Yeah, I know.
Big Bolivar here. Appreciate the super chat. And he adds, do the right thing, make Erica a mod. Well, right now, the only mod is the one you see on the right side of your screen right now. Kyle is the one and only. So I've not opened myself to that. I've tried to keep things pretty cool, calm, and condensed, collected, if you will. But Kyle, we are going to get to your video in just a second. I'm going to throw you out of the screen again. I just wanted to bring you in to rip you for a second. Out of the screen. I'm going to bring you back here in a couple more minutes because I do want to get to this, and I see your friend Connor in here as well. We got like 2 calls. I think we got a shout out to Coach Patterson here on the call line, so we'll be right back with you.
Okay.
All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Tom Patterson, who's on the line.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you got Mike Ferroni and Mike Devlin. Sitting here waiting to talk to Coach P. We were watching the podcast. Oh, well, okay, we're on.
You are on. You can turn down your computer and you are on. And Coach
Patterson,
I'm
sorry, we got games on in the background.
Oh, you're fine.
Put that volume
you're fine.
over there.
I tell you what, Mike, it warms my heart to know you guys are still such close friends.
Coach, this is what, 30 years now, right? 30 years. 30 years. And we are as strong an Iowa Hawkeye fan as ever.
I'm not surprised. You guys bleed black and gold. I know that.
That's it. It's great. It's great watching you on the podcast, Coach P, because you have a lot of insight, and sometimes you guys even bring up some of the games back when we played. I was listening to you guys the other night talking about the Ohio State game with our teammate and classmate Alan Cross running for a 56-yard touchdown, which is probably some kind of record. But unfortunately, I know me and Devlin do have one record that still stands to this day, which is I believe, Coach P, you were also the offensive coordinator for this one. The last Iowa team to beat Ohio State at Ohio State.
Really, I wouldn't hear that. Was that the year of 76 Y Hot, or was it sometime later?
I don't know. I just remember me and Devlin running down the field, jumping up and down, watching Al. And we had a day to watch him because it took him probably all 10 seconds to get to the end zone. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the great highlights of our career. But so Devlin had a game Thursday night with the Ravens. We're coaches, and he came up here and we had a little Iowa game watch going on, and we were rooting for the Hawks, obviously. So we watched the game, and I told him you had a podcast because, he's an NFL coach, so he's not really in the real world. He's 24/7 NFL. So he said, let's check out Coach P's thing. So we were watching your podcast, and I'm trying to find the number. Thanks for putting the number on there for us. We're getting a little old, Coach, but you still look great. Not a hair out of place. And Corey, I'm going to tell you right now, me and Devlin sitting in we used to do this thing before every game where Coach P and all the other coaches would ask us questions on our assignments. Remember what I'm telling Devlin? And we would sit there and say, man, we sure are glad we're not quarterbacks. Yeah, no question.
I thought that was a great idea that Coach Roy had. And as Mike and Mike can tell you, a mental check in front of the entire football team. You got every coach that gets up and asks questions of his players. And I'm sure, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, you feel a little bit of pressure when that coach is up there knowing he's going to ask you something about the game.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure.
But the beauty of it, the players invariably know how to answer the question. And my perception is it always breeds confidence within the team that we are ready to play this game.
That's right. It's a lot of mental exercise going into that. My favorite question would be when I would get asked, hey, Beef, what do the Hawks have to do to win the game today on the line of scrimmage? It's something simple because, Coach, like in football, I would always look to my center for the call. And we had the most intelligent, center on the planet. And fortunately, he knew what I was supposed to do. I'm still listening to him today, but, that's kind of how it goes.
Well, can I ask
Yeah.
Coach Devlin a question real quick?
Yeah.
Coach, tell us what it's like to coach Tyler Linderbaum. How is he progressing for your Ravens?
You know what? I tell him this every other day. He's the second best center that ever came out of. But he's so athletic. He's so intelligent. He's everything you think. It's unbelievable. It's a gift, really. I mean, to coach someone like him. He's smart. He's tough. He every day he comes to work. He you know, as far as the calls go and any adjustments need to go. I mean, he's unbelievable. He really is.
Didn't we hear coming out of college that the big knock on Tyler was that he had short arms? How have those short arms?
Yeah, I mean, I was the same way, but the guy, he you know, that wrestling background that he had, which I didn't have, and he uses that to his advantage, and I see it all the time. In fact, this year, you know, relative to like bull rushes and all that stuff, he's really like taken that and grown with it and gotten better with it. It's really unbelievable. So he's that next level center in the NFL right now, and you know, he's really it's awesome to see. It really is, and he has that same Iowa mentality that many centers that come before him have taken, and he's been elite at it. So,
Don, what made from what you remember, what made Mike such a special O lineman when he was at Iowa? I'm talking about
Mike
Devlin.
Baroni?
No, I'm talking about you. I'm talking to Coach Patterson here.
Well, first off, Mike's dad was a great coach, so Mike learned football long before he arrived at Iowa. He knew football inside and out. His dad was a great coach. And I'm sure, Mike, you'd be quick to give Coach Ferentz a ton of credit for your development, too. Matter of fact, when I see Kirk, I'm going to mention to him that you guys called in because you're proud to be a Hawkeye tonight for what happened today in Kinnick.
Yeah, they, you know, I feel blessed to be able to coach by a guy like him as my line coach to take me to the next level, you know, and you can see it now relative to everything he's doing there at Iowa. And I just think it's phenomenal what they're doing, and get a piece of the championship, even with everything that's going on. And that's just, you know, it's Iowa. I was, you know, I was told when I was being recruited, look, you're going to get a chance at a championship. You're going to get a chance at the Rose Bowl, and you're going to get a chance, you know, and that all happened. And that's what's happening now. It's the same thing. So it's incredible. So.
Well, hats off to both of you guys for being an integral part in Iowa football, because let's face it, it all started a long time ago, and it's now been successful for a long period of time.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, I want to give a shout out to Rita, who's been through, you know, Coach Ferentz and Coach Fry's term as the head secretary, and I'm sure you know the credit that she deserves. But when I have been back to Iowa in the past, and you know, had an opportunity to get back, the one thing that separates Iowa, and I'm going to say this because I've talked to a lot of other guys that have played college football at different places, other schools, and I'm sure Double will say the same thing. The one thing that separates Iowa from every other college that in the land is the people. And the people on the staff. Coach Fry started hiring all the great coaches that he's hired. And it's not just the staff, it goes all the way down to the equipment manager, to Greg Morris and all these people. And it's great to come back and see all the same faces that have been so big a part of the program. And, you know, Coach, just on a side note, you know, we really appreciate all the hard work and effort and dedication that you put into, us, because there's nobody more dedicated, than you at Iowa football. I honestly believe that. And, we just, our experience was a great experience, and that's all we want for these guys coming through now.
Well, Mike, I can't thank you enough for your kind words. And believe me, it was a labor of love. I enjoyed every minute of it, and you guys are special. And you would say you're just like a lot of other players that played for Iowa. It's one big happy family. It really is. And Rita's part of that family too, of course. She's the mother hen.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. Thanks for taking our call.
Appreciate it, Coach. Good to see you.
You guys have made our night. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Mike and Mike. Appreciate it, guys.
Good work. All right.
I think that made your night, right, Don?
Absolutely. They haven't played for Iowa in a while, but they still have tremendous loyalty for them because they are part of the program. They're a special group of guys that let's face it, it's not easy to be the number 1 ranked team most of the season, but in 1985 we got that done.
Danimal here with the super chat. This one's on Jamari for having the game of his career. Hope you two are having a good night. Go Hawks. How did you think Jamari Harris led the way, Don, as basically the most experienced corner on the back end for Iowa?
I don't have a really good idea for how to answer that right now. The game's TiVoed, of course. I'll look at the game, and I know a lot more in it. But coaches, coaches say, "Well, I don't want to comment now because you go see the video first." That still applies to me too. It's hard for me to get a really good handle on how an individual played if I'm just sitting there in the stadium. I do recall Jamari contending a lot of passes and breaking up some passes. I don't know officially how many PBUs he had tonight, but he certainly had a couple, if not more. And I'm not unhappy with either one of those corners because both those guys, they came today and they competed. And they didn't play as well maybe as Cooper DeJean could play, but that's okay because all their only obligation to us is to be the best version of themselves, and those guys did that today. That's one reason we won the game.
Appreciate the super chat, Danimal. Iceman 57. Please ask Don when he's opening his online merch store. I need one of those sparkly hats. Hopefully he'll offer sparkly boots too. Go Hawks. So
I don't know to sell these caps. It might have to be these hats. It might be buy one get one free or something. I'm not sure.
You'll have to have Lisa's sorority sisters open a merch store for you, Don. They seem
There you go.
good at this stuff. Appreciate that, Iceman 57 and Erica. I think we got this super chat earlier, but again, thank you for the super chat, for the donation, and for the suggestions. And we'll get to your other super chat here in a little bit. Scott wants to know who Iowa's going to get as a QB's coach. Well, whoever that's going to be is likely going to be coaching the offense. I think it's very unlikely that they go and switch unless somebody else leaves, Don, and that's always a possibility. But typically the OC is the quarterback's coach, and they have a need at both of those positions, not only as the head of the offense, but as a quarterback guru. Whether that's Bud Meyer or whether that's somebody else, somebody who understands the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
There'll be a lot of good candidates, that's for sure.
Vincent says, I enjoy the journey rather than the destination. This season was interesting. My kid is on the HMB, so let the journey continue. Don, what is the HMB?
Hawkeye Marching Band.
Ah, okay. Thank you. See, I've appreciate that super chat, Vincent. I'm glad you could interpret that, Don, because I would have had no idea what that meant.
Let me share this with Vincent. I will guarantee you that Lisa and I are in our seats long before the game starts. And the reason, Vincent, is because we enjoy, just like you, we enjoy watching our band at pregame and also at halftime. They do a great job.
Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate that super chat. And Lemansky, thanks, Don, for attending games. Can you give us some O-line comments from your seat in the stands, even though you haven't gotten a look at the TV tape, Don?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I was impressed with the surge we got in the first half. You know, did we outrush them for the game? I think we did, but it took not by a lot. But in the first half in particular, we were running the ball pretty effectively. But here's a good sign, Corey. Even though we struggled in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter when we needed to ice the game, we found a way to do it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
4-minute offense was good today.
Let's give some credit to Caleb Johnson, who easily could have put his head down and sulked because he has seemingly fallen down the depth chart. But boy, came up with a big touchdown run and a big first down late to seal it.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of people to win a football game, and 3 of those people happen to be playing running back for us.
Lomansky adds in, Erica, you have pull with Don. Nice hat. Thank you for the super chat, Lomansky. And Erica, on top of that, says, wow, never thought I'd see the day where Coach would wear a cowboy hat. Let's go, Hawks. So, boy, the cowboy hat getting a lot of attention this evening, Don, and rightfully so. Avos wants to know, is Iowa the visitor or the home team for the championship game? I don't know how that works. Don, do you have any idea?
I don't recall what we were 2 years ago. We were in 2021, should be the same as this year. So if you think back to 2021, if we were the visiting team, we should be the visiting team again in another odd year, such as this year, of course, 21 and 23. I can't recall. I don't recall which jersey we wore. I don't remember.
Oh, hello, Coach.
What's up, Kyle?
I think we may have lost our host.
I think you're right. I do see an entry here. Iowa is the home team. That's what Lane says. And Steve Cashman says the same thing. So I don't doubt that they know what they're talking about.
What's important about that for the game, just so that people are clear? Because there's obviously a reason why that question is being asked. What's it beyond the jersey?
I don't think it matters a whit, to be honest with you. Now, I'm sure we take a lot of pride in wearing our home jersey because, when I think most of the snapshots you see of players, more often than not, they're probably shot in the black jersey versus white. But our road uniforms look great too, so I don't have any issue. It really doesn't matter, of course.
It does factor in as it relates to the toss.
Yeah,
correct?
That's the only thing I was aware of.
Yeah.
That's very true.
And remember, 2 years ago, we talked about that all-important toss against Michigan.
You're right.
On the toss, and Don, you were free. You openly admitted that your advice was Iowa needs to take the ball first.
We need to score first.
And
Michigan, as I recall, was 12-0 when they scored first in every damn game.
And Iowa decided to kick Don, and I about had a conniption. I had a breakdown. I had a meltdown. So
right then you knew we were in trouble, didn't you?
It was over. I knew it was over before the game started.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you knew before that moment what was gonna happen in that game.
My hopes, but they quickly got dashed. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. I've had for the first time all year. I've had some technical issues with. I don't know if this is Wi-Fi related or just an overload of too many different things going on here. So, Kyle, if I throw you into the mix, you're up, Kip.
So I have a request. Would you share with Corey your experience last night after the game?
Yes, I did. I actually forgot to tell Corey this. Usually I would have DM'd you or DM'd Corey if I had something like that happen. But Corey knew I was at the basketball game last night. I've got Connor with us who is from Illinois, and he was already scheduled to come in for the game today. So he was coming to stay at my house the night before. So I looked online and I was like, hey, it's $5 to go to this game. I might as well grab some tickets and go down just for the experience. So then we were walking on the way out, and I saw a handsome young guy walking at the top of the bowl. And
what does that have to do with me?
I just figured I'd come say hello. I didn't want to bother you too much, but it's always good to see you out and about.
He saw Burt Reynolds in live motion, Don.
I also saw Kakert because we were sitting kind of close to the press rows at the game, so I saw him as well. I wasn't able to go say hi to him. I didn't want to bother him because he looked like he was busy. But for what
that does remind me, today as the game was winding down, we were paying attention to the game, of course, and then I realized all of a sudden there's a guy standing next to me, and the people in those seats had already left. There's only a couple of minutes left in the game, and the guy said, "Coach, I just want you to know I thoroughly enjoy your show with Corey." And I said, I really appreciate you telling me that. And do you ever call in? And he said, no, I don't. And I said, well, why don't you call in? Let us know. Call in tonight and we'll talk again. And he promised he would call, but to my knowledge, he has not called yet. So maybe he's on the line right now. Maybe he's holding.
Well, we do have somebody in the queue named Jeff, and we have Yakov22, and we also have Connor. So I promise I'm not forgetting our callers who are on hold. And I've got the Mavs game in the corner of my screen, and I'm seeing them blow a double-digit lead at Milwaukee, and they're now trailing by 3 with 4 minutes to go. So I'm. What was the comment here earlier? I have to throw this up. Since we're kind of late in the show, I might as well do this. Somebody asked, here it is. William says, Corey, you seem grumpy. Did Brett Bielema steal your lunch?
I saw that earlier, too.
No.
I was debating whether or not to get rid of that one, but I figured I'd let it come to your attention.
We've had comments about at Brett's expense, and I think the world of Brett Bielema. I know, Don, you really have a lot of respect for Brett as well.
Yeah, he's a fine man.
And by the way, when I still stand by, I know that Illinois has had their ups and downs this year. When Kirk Ferentz, when and if he retires, I think Brett deserves to be in the conversation. Not saying he should be the next coach, but I think he should be in the conversation. And he is Hawkeye through and through.
I don't know if you've talked about this already, Corey, but and maybe you couldn't see it through the broadcast, but Illinois did not waive for the wave. Do you read anything into that? I mean, they were probably 30 players were in a huddle. There might have been a few here and there that waved, but the majority of the team did not wave today.
That's what Erica said as well. I'm not sure why that would be, Don. And I'm surprised unless it was just not orchestrated prior by Brett, but that doesn't seem like
surprised too.
Would deliberately do with his team.
I find it hard to believe that there was any kind of ill intent. My guess is he simply forgot to mention to him that don't forget, a lot of those guys weren't here 2 years ago. And for that matter, Brett wasn't here 2 years ago. Right? He missed a game with COVID.
Correct.
So that's my guess, is they simply weren't aware of the tradition of the wave.
That seems hard to believe, though, in a sense, Don, that they come in here not aware of it. But
I don't think they were trying to be spiteful. That's hard for me to believe.
Yeah. Steve wants to know if that double reverse block was actually a blindside block. Kirk was not happy with that call, it appeared. Don, your thoughts on that? It's like you said to me, Kyle, during the game, it's kind of hard to, what do you tell your players to do when a guy's running your direction? And, it's not like he was intentionally trying to, sneak up on him. What do you do? I don't know how you make yourself visible.
He hit him on the left side of his chest. I mean, it wasn't he didn't even hit him on the side of the shoulder or the back. Like he hit him in the chest.
Yeah. Well, they're just simply trying to take a lot of the violence out of football, of course. In that same spot, you're okay to block him. You just can't, what we used to call decleat him. A decleater is a hit, where you take his feet right off the ground. And so if there's if it appears there's any malicious intent at all, they're more likely to flag you for it. In other words, as hard as it is to pass up a decleater block, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be nice to him and hit him like he's your brother-in-law, I guess, rather than an opposing player.
John wants to know if there's rumors about Stoops, one of the Stoops brothers, replacing Kirk in 2026. Somebody may have come up with those rumors, but there's no truth to them. Kyle says, great game for the Hawks. Defense wins championships. And let's see, Jack says, I think you just ignored the Nebraska game. We have zero shot at the playoffs. Put in people that need experience and give the main guys a bye week, Don.
No.
Sorry, Jack. You're on your own with that decision. That's not going to happen. I promise you.
I would love to see Marco Lainez play. I've said that, but that's not. Yeah, it's just not happening, Jack. Whether you wanted it to or not. Cody, did Eric All redshirt? No. Eric All played in too many games. Even if he had a redshirt year available, he was not going to be eligible to redshirt. Played in too many games. He does have a year left due to COVID. That if he wants it, he can come back. But I kind of doubt it with Eric. Boy, that'd be great if you could get Lachey and Eric All back, and then a young Addison Estringa who's really getting solid time as the year goes on. John wants to know I wonder if Corey agrees that Lee had a decent game coming in. Very hard to replace Cooper. They were obviously attacking him. I think Iowa didn't scheme enough to help him. I thought he played just fine. We haven't seen teams throw the ball 50 times against this defense recently, so you're going to give up some plays. But overall, I thought Harris and Lee were really good. Would you agree, Don?
Like you heard me say before, Corey, I think they did a good job of competing. They weren't afraid to play. They've been coached, don't give up the big play, and they didn't give up the big play. The ball was thrown underneath them. They competed on a lot of those underneath cuts too. In some cases, they broke them up even. I think they competed just fine, and I think it'd be wrong to say that they were a huge weak link in our defense because I don't think that's fair.
D. Hollywood, appreciate the super chat. Thanks for this podcast from Los Angeles. See you in Pasadena. Shut out the East champ. Boy, that would be great, wouldn't it? DC Hawkeye, Coach and Corey, when do you think a new OC will be chosen? When will a new OC be chosen? Probably in February, Don. January or February is my guess.
Hopefully sooner, but you might be right. You might be right, Corey. I would just say this. Let's face it, every year there's a pool of candidates available for head coaching opportunities, and there's a different pool of candidates available for offensive coordinator. And let's face it, that pool is going to get smaller as December turns into January, turns into February. So I hope we don't wait too long. There is a little opportunity there between the Big Ten championship game and the bowl game, as if Kirk doesn't have enough to do already with recruiting in December. Let's face it, you could get a lot done in terms of picking your next OC in the month of December. If we were lucky, we'd have a person we could talk about before Christmas. That certainly may not happen because let's face it, some of the ideal candidates are playing in a really important bowl game or maybe even in the bowl. We simply don't know what it might be for the job they have right now. For them, it might go later, as you suggested, Corey. Might not happen even until February. That's Kirk's call. He'll have a list of people, and they'll all be good choices. And there'll be a lot of debate, of course, about who's better than who. But truth of it is, I don't doubt Kirk's judgment for a minute. He'll pick a really good guy, and we'll be well served with the new coordinator.
Kurt Campbell says, Corey, you're blind. Both the disagreements you had with the first caller and disagreement with Devin were wrong. It wasn't even close to a catch. Appreciate the $0 super chat from Kurt. We go on to Jack. Jack says, Coach, after clinching a title prior to last regular season game, what do you say to the team to keep them focused for next week?
Well, it all starts with getting back that trophy because these rivalry games do matter. Believe me, that every player can tell you how many of those traveling trophies are in our building. And we know right now there's one missing from that Nebraska series. So not that it's going to be any kind of huge revenge motive. It's just that we want to reclaim what we've had more often than not. And that's that trophy involving Nebraska versus Iowa.
Kyle wants Don to come out of retirement and be the OC, Don. There you go. You got a party that's behind you. So
that's very kind, Kyle, to say that. The only way I know to do it is to operate on about 4 hours sleep. And that worked fine when I was 40-something and 50-something, but I'm not sure it's going to work now that I'm 70-something.
And the comment here from Michael, I actually have this written down in my notes. Why so much empty backfield on third and short? Shouldn't we make them play the run and the pass? And in general, Don, I have this note written down. Let's talk about going empty. It seems like we are absolutely in love with going empty. It's kind of like we're in love with naked. We're just absolutely in love with naked. And it burned them today, but they're also in love with empty. Don, talk about it.
Well, you've heard me say before, I'm amazed that people don't do it. I know we had it as part of our defensive package. If somebody went empty on us, depending on who you were, or if they were trying to really, really wear us out with empty, you got to discourage them from going empty. The best way to do that, go zero blitz. You heard me talk about it, Corey. How about this? You got 5 blockers to protect that quarterback. Let's just to have fun with it with 6 rushers. Now you tell me how 5 linemen are going to block 6. It's not happening. Furthermore, those 5 cover guys now know the ball's got to come out right now. So what are we going to do? We're going to defend knowing that the ball's got to be thrown immediately. And I promise you, if you get a steady dose of that, you're going to think long and hard about going back to empty. So we haven't seen it yet, but I'd be prepared for it because Matt Rule is nobody's fool. You know, Matt Rule knows defense. I'm not saying Nebraska's going to do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. So we better have a plan for empty. That's all. A plan for zero blitz versus empty. That's my point.
Mark wants to know, what are the chances a 2 or 3 loss Big Ten champion in Iowa makes the playoffs? As Hayden Fry would say, slim to none and slim left town. Right, Don?
Corey, you knew that was on my mind, didn't you?
Yes, because it was on my mind, Don. So, yes, that's not happening. The only way that would happen, potentially, like the only time that the meter would even go to like 0.25% would be if somehow Iowa dominated either Michigan or Ohio State, and they're 11-2, and then chaos breaks out across the landscape of college football. Then maybe we're talking about a possibility. The committee looking at 11-2 Big Ten champion Iowa that actually should probably be 12-1 in all reality, but again, almost impossible at this point. All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. I promise we're gonna get to Connor. I've got Jeff in front. Jeff, thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach John Patterson.
All right, thanks for having me. Hey, I was just wondering, they didn't have any post-game celebration on the field like they've had in the past with the Big Ten Championship trophy presentation. I would have loved to see Beth Getz hand that trophy over to Coach Ferentz, either one. I just think it's a travesty the way things were handled, an embarrassment. And I'm glad to see the players that supported Brian both on the field, and then I don't know if you guys are able to listen to the post game with Dolph and Eddie, but we listened to that on the way home from the game, and they were so supportive. 2 guys that have taken heat from a lot of people with speculation, Caleb Brown and Caleb Johnson. Caleb Brown, he was benched for this, benched for that. He singled out, unsolicited, Brian Ferentz by name after the game and what good a coach he is and what kind of support he's given. And same thing with Caleb Johnson. Oh, he hasn't been getting the touches. He's in the doghouse, that type of thing. He said, I mean, he showed nothing but a team-first attitude. And I think that just speaks so highly of the coaching staff, and it makes you proud because they've been dogged. And I just wish Beth Getz was held to the fire a little bit for this situation on how poorly this was handled. Whether it was leaked or not, it shouldn't have been done. It should have been waited till after the season. It was an embarrassment the way they handled it, and I'm glad they were able to win on their home field. And I think they should have celebrated on their home field like they've done in the past and had that trophy handed to them.
Don, you have a response to that?
No comment.
Kyle, you have a response, Kyle?
Well, I mean, I will say that I agree with the point about the Calebs. I think those two have been both highly professional over the course of the season, particularly Caleb Brown, who came from Ohio State and really got – I mean, when was his first catch was against Northwestern, right? I mean, for him to hold on that long and then break out the way that he has the last couple of weeks, I think speaks really highly of him and is really impressive, and Caleb Johnson as well.
So, Jeff, I love you, and I know you call in the show, and I appreciate that, and you watch the show, and everybody, I'm fine with the difference of opinion, but I don't agree with you on this, right?
Yeah, that's fine. They're 9-2,
Yeah, they're 9-2, but the offense still sucks. So, I mean,
they've improved. They've improved every week.
No, they haven't. They went backwards this week. Let's just call a spade a spade. They went backwards this week. They scored 15 points against
Corey. I think this was something that was interesting to me. Was Iowa? I think we can all agree has a defense that's top 10 in the country, and have had that for a while. This was the first time in like 15 games in a row that they had they had gained more total yards than an opponent 2 weeks in a row. It's only the second time it's happened in like 3 years.
But just keep in mind, the only reason I say that, and I have no vendetta against Brian, and Jeff, I love the fact that the players embraced him and rallied around him tonight. I think that's fabulous. But Indiana put up 45 on this Illinois defense last week.
And that's fine. The game was handled in a different way. The game plays out a different way. Haven't you seen how every week Iowa plays you into their game, and it's worked for them?
I understand that, and that's why you don't see me on here ripping Kirk. But I mean, are you more upset with the fact that Brian's being let go, or just more upset with the fact that the announcement was made during the season?
The announcement was made during the season. I mean, you could see the frustration from the staff. I mean, that was embarrassing. I mean, who is she to come in as an interim? Her experience and background is mid-major level soccer, to know what it takes to be an offensive coordinator at that level and evaluate that. I get that, you need clear minds to do that, but that happens at the end of the season. It's an embarrassment. It happened in the middle of a race, and I'm glad they persevered through it. And like I said, the players stuck together with the coaches and supported the decision. But
I agree. I will say this though. Beth would not have been put in that situation had the previous AD done his job after a season like he was required to as Brian's superior.
Well, so that statistic, that metric had nothing to do with. I mean, 25 points a game is ridiculous. There are 4 teams in the Big Ten averaging more than 20 out of 14 teams. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and then Maryland, who's got a lousy defense. That's just an absolute asinine metric. The metric they should be measured on is wins and losses, and the head coach should be able to evaluate his staff after the season.
Okay, but the head coach cannot evaluate his son. That's why the AD is responsible for making that decision. You do understand that, correct? This is his son. I understand what you're saying.
Mid-season, what parameters or what basis does she have? What qualifications does she have in that position?
Well, that wasn't necessarily all her decision either. There was, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong.
Barb Wilson's got some say in that because she has a lot of background in it too and calling plays.
Well, I mean, heck, so you just want unlimited power for Kirk Ferentz. He can hire anybody he wants. Mary can be the new quarterbacks coach, and I mean, there unlimited power. Or is that really what we're voting for here, Jeff?
No, a mid-season decision should not been left up to her in those hands.
I know, but what I'm saying is Barta should have made the decision last year at the end of the season. He did not. So there's pressure. There was obviously pressure above Beth Getz, and we don't know why the announcement was it leaked? What we don't know why that happened.
It doesn't matter if it leaked. It shouldn't have happened until the end of the season.
What do you mean it shouldn't have? It didn't happen until the end of the season.
It did happen, whether it was leaked or not. It did not happen. Beth Getz's decision this year happened in season.
Between it being leaked and her announcing it, what's the difference? It's out there. It got out there.
It shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have been a conversation that happens in season.
Well, again, you talked about how stupid the contract was. The 25 point per game contract. Maybe it was a situation where Beth or whoever was above Beth said, hey, we don't want that to be the narrative. We're making this decision on our own accord based on our own metrics, not on some stupid metric that Brian, Barta, and Kirk came up with. Is that fair?
Brian and Kirk didn't come up with that metric.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know that to be true, Jeff?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'd be shocked if they didn't have at least the same.
I fully appreciate.
Well, I said this earlier when I did this. As a former coach as well, you've been critical of Brian in here, Don. As a former coach, I would say it's breaking code. You have inside information. You've been on the sidelines and stuff, and you've been critical, very critical, and it's different.
Jeff,
to be
supportive. That's what I've been, Jeff. I've been honest. That's what I've been.
In a critical way.
Oh my God! I brag on him when I have a chance to do so. If I'm not in position to brag on him, I don't do it. It's that simple.
It's just objectivity.
It's a difference of not bragging on versus being critical of that hire in that position when he got hired as quarterbacks coach in this offseason.
He puts himself in that position by hiring his own son too.
I'm just curious, what do you want us to do on this show, Jeff? You want us to come on the show and go, oh, Kirk and Brian, we love you so. Kirk and Brian, we love you so. Give us soup. I mean, what do you want? There's
a way you can handle it like other media members do that's more respectful.
You mean? All right. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. Well, I got nothing else for you, Jeff. I appreciate you calling in, but if you, let's just leave it.
I mean, it's a serious question. Do they listen? Do they know how critical you've been, Don, Brian, and Kirk? Because you talk to them. Do they have issue with that?
Kirk has never said one word to me about anything I've ever said about Iowa football. And you know
Is
why?
he aware of it?
Absolutely, I'm sure he is.
I
He's
would.
also
I would
aware.
I mean,
He's also aware, Jeff.
Jeff,
He's also
here,
aware that I'm giving up a lot of my time to do everything I can to help them win.
I'll tell
My
you why.
roses are with Iowa football.
I'll tell you why too, because whenever Don Patterson's been on this show for 3 years, Jeff, he has been respectful in his criticism. There's a difference between having an agenda and a narrative that's favorable to whatever your subject is, and actually being honest while also being respectful.
I would also assume as well that Coach Patterson has the respect of Kirk and a relationship enough with Kirk to the point where he could say all of the same things that he says on the show to Kirk in person.
Maybe even a little bit more, Jeff, if he chose to.
And that's for Coach Patterson to tell us, but I'm just venturing to say that.
Jeff, I appreciate you calling in, sir.
Yeah.
Let's move on. All right, let's move on. We got a couple of super chats to get to. First of all, Scott, appreciate the super chat. Deacon Hill. Well, let's appreciate that super chat from Scott. I don't know what it means other than they did win this game behind Deacon Hill. Deacon Hill has improved these last 2 weeks. I think he took a step back in the second half today. I know that that's heresy for me to be critical of him and say something negative about a Brian Ferentz coach player, but Deacon Hill has been better the last 2 weeks than he was, the first 4 starts of his career. And they're going to need that, especially maybe not at Lincoln. I think they're probably going to, it's a good defense that they're playing this next week, Don, on Friday night against the Huskers. And I, of course, haven't been watching the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. I believe Wisconsin pulled that off. Do you have a score by chance, Kyle?
For Nebraska?
Yeah, let me pull it up here.
Well, I will say I would give you a score, but I haven't played the golf yet, so maybe I'll let the golf decide again.
Okay, so Wisconsin is leading Nebraska right now, 17-14, but Nebraska's in field goal range. So
yes.
I might as well pull this is just beautiful. I'm going to pull this game up on my my NBC Sports app and get this going. Let's appreciate the super chat. Very generous donation from Scott. Thank you for that. Also, there was a Venmo donation from Brian Bourne. I don't know which one I love more, the CD3 hoodie or the Coach Patterson cowboy hat. Go Hawks. So appreciate that, Brian. Thank you for the donation, and I am going to get this the end of the Nebraska game. By the way, the Mavs lost, so that's great news. Get this going here. Okay, let's add in Yakov 22 to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Yakov!
Hi, guys. How are you?
Looked like you were in a trance there.
Yeah, because literally Nebraska just kicked the game-tying field goal. Just when you put me on, so I was following the field goal.
Okay.
No trance. I was just looking up at the TV there.
Well, I appreciate you being here.
Yes, well, I appreciate you guys having me. First of all, Corey, congratulations. I really hope we're playing you guys in 2 weeks.
We very well could see Ohio. I kind of hope that too. I don't like. I made the comment a week or two ago. I hope Michigan loses every game from here on out for a number of reasons. I don't need to get into it right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. That's not my call,
but I have more respect right now for Ryan Day than I do for Jim Harbaugh, for a number of reasons. But I think Iowa, people like Eric Alcade McNamara, even though they're not playing in this game, would rather play Michigan.
Huh? Okay. Well, that's interesting. Actually, I called you. Not that that's not a good topic, but I saw a few minutes ago you had a super chat about any chance Iowa gets in with 2 or 3 losses, and so no. But if this was next year, the 12th team, this time next year, very much, and they only lose 2 games in the Big Ten.
Yakov, there's 16 in the country right now in the college football playoff poll right now. 16 in the country, so. they would absolutely, Don, if we had a 12-team playoff this year, these next 2 games would be, you win these next 2 games, you're in. Without question, you're in.
Right, right.
So we
Now,
wish
let's
we
not
had the
forget,
experience.
going into today's game, we were ranked 16th, right?
Correct.
So it wouldn't be
Yeah,
hard,
that's what-
wouldn't be hard to move our way up into the top 12.
Well, if they won the Big Ten title game, they easily be in the top. They'd probably be in the top 8.
When 6 moved, I believe, 6 rankings after the win against Rutgers. The biggest movement of any team in the college football playoff rankings. So the committee took notice of that offensive performance last week.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, our game against Michigan would be only for seeding. It's going to be a very weird feeling next year. Where first, I don't think Michigan's going to be anywhere. They're not going to be 11-0 next year. I can assure you that. But yeah, it's such a situation. A season-ending game like that would college football is totally different next year. It'll just be for seeding. Both teams will be in the playoffs. So the way we've looked at college football all these years is going to change dramatically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Less of an emphasis on conference championships, more of an emphasis on the playoffs. And it's going to be a lot easier to make the playoffs than it is going to be to win the Big Ten moving forward.
It might almost be like college basketball. Let's say you win the Big Ten, and then you flame out in the second round, but another team finishes 5th and gets to the final 8. That's 2 more games, but they had a significantly better season. Actually, what I wanted to call, Don, Coach Patterson, is I did watch the Iowa game, but I don't want to. You guys have talked about that, so many angles. I don't have anything to add necessarily on that. But something I was thinking, Coach, I was watching one of the pregame today, and that that shot they have before every game was like 22 minutes before kickoff, and both head coaches are like at the 50-yard line, with their arms folded like that, having a very nonchalant conversation. Coach, I was always wondering, what are you guys talking about? What are some of the things you guys are talking about in that 22 minutes before kickoff conversation?
Well,
Corey, I hope that's a worthwhile thing to bring up here, Corey.
Truth be known, I'm sure they were reminiscing to some degree about games maybe that they've been part of in the past that might involve Brad on our sideline, either playing or coaching, or might involve Brad on the other sideline, coaching against Iowa. He's been in most situations, of course. And you got to realize these guys, they want to win in the worst way, but they're still dear friends.
Right, I'm sure.
Their friendship goes back a long way. One thing I'm confident in saying, Kirk thinks the world of Brett, and Brett thinks the world of Kirk. And why wouldn't they? Because they're both incredibly great people. Both of them are.
For sure, yeah. And I wasn't even just speaking about the Iowa Illinois game. I just meant in general. That's a very common scene they show prior to about 20-25 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah, it depends on how well they know the other coach. Oftentimes, of course, you do know the families.
For sure, yeah.
You at least know the spouses, if not the children. So part of that visit, if they haven't talked in some time, is just to kind of get an update on each other's families, how they're doing. Because let's face it, Kirk and Brian, listen to me. Kirk and Brett were great friends a long time ago before they ever coached against each other.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And Corey, one last other question I'll ask is, Coach, for the last 7 weeks we've heard so much about signals. Not getting into that whole thing. That takes your show in a whole different direction. But remember, I'm someone who played 2 years of middle school football as a bench warmer. So that's the zenith of my, and that's 30 years ago. But with that in mind, all this, we watch them do all these signals, and Coach, I was just wondering when the team's looking at that, is one of those signals to tell the offensive line the blocking scheme, another one to tell the receivers which pattern they're running, another one to the tight end if he's going to stay in or run out in a pattern. The fourth one is the running back is he going to is he going to run out for a swing pass? Is he in there for pass pro? What does each thing mean?
Well, the signal is simply a communication so that everybody understands what the play call is, but the burden's on you as an individual to know your assignment. Now, if you're an offensive lineman, you're going to get an indication from the center as to what the blocking scheme is all about. But the bottom line, there's individual responsibility for knowing exactly what to do with all these plays. And if you don't know, you might ask your neighbor. If you're the left tackle, you might check with the left guard just to verify what he's doing. But believe me, there's constant communication to try to be sure that you eliminate assignment errors. But you're not going to get any kind of indication from the bench about who you're supposed to block. You have to understand the scheme and then be able to carry out the scheme.
Right. And each receiver knows, hey, this is my pattern, and the running back knows if he's supposed to stay in for pass pro or be ready to catch a pass.
Yeah, and it's one reason you do get into some pretty long huddle calls. It might be a set of numbers and a set of descriptive words too. So when you add all those together, it might be as many as 6 or 8 different communication points to be made. You've run across a few huddle calls that are out there, and they're pretty complicated, because you gotta, let's face it, if you want a player to line up in a certain position and then move to another position, there's got to be a word that tells him to do that, unless it's just standard for all plays in that particular formation. And typically it's not. But you have a word that triggers him, that alerts him. It means I start off lined up on the right, and then when the first signal is given by the quarterback, I shift to another alignment. It's got to be communicated with a specific word that tells him what to do.
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
Uh-huh.
I always enjoy when I can ask you something and that I've always been thinking of, Coach, and you always give concise and very excellent answers.
Yeah, a simple example might be the huddle call is pro right jump. Pro right jump, maybe it's understood. That means we start off in empty and then we jump back into pro right, right? So jump tells you, it alerts you, let's start off in this particular formation. It might vary from week to week, but jump has to tell you specifically what to do. You start off in one position, and then at the right time, you shift into another position. Wow. That's how it might work.
There seems like there's so much to remember, Coach. One guy doing the wrong thing, it blows up the whole play.
That's why you have to. That's why you have to practice football to get it right.
Right. Yeah. Well, football, Coach, is important it is to be a superior athlete. Even if you are that could not always be enough. That's a good start, but it's not just that.
Yeah. It's more complicated than people realize. I'll say it that way.
That's right. Gentlemen, I wish I could ask more things, but I know it's about time for you guys to go. I might finish up watching a game here. But again, Corey, I hope I can I'll watch your show no matter what in 2 weeks, but I'm hoping it's going to be Ohio State, Iowa.
Sounds good, sir. Well, we'll all be watching next week, and we'll hope that we get a matchup in 2 weeks.
That'd be more. Yeah. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Lemansky says, Coach, your integrity is without argument.
I would second that.
Without it, Don. Without argument.
I appreciate Lemansky's comment.
Let's see. Iceman 57. Thank you, Lemansky. Iceman 57. Appreciate the super chat. Hey, Don, back in the late 70s, early 80s, I worked for Mark Hendrickson's brother, Jeff, at Athlete's Foot in Old Capitol Mall. I also attended your first game in 79 versus Indiana. We lost a big halftime lead, but it felt like we won. Thanks for the memories.
Out of that first game, and we played a wonderful first half, except we forgot that it was only half done. They beat us at the end. They beat us with a wheel route, incidentally. And I still remember the name of the cornerback that was beaten on that play, but I'm not gonna share that. That wouldn't be fair to him.
Thank you, Iceman, for the donation. We do appreciate that, and for the kind words for Don. Very much appreciated. I read all the super chats, so I don't pass any up. Bill says, to the caller, Jeff, why did the offense seem to change after the announcement on Brian? That is Bill Smith. Thank you for the super chat, Bill. Do appreciate that. And again, I read all super chats. Bill said, CJW says, here is 20 just for ripping on him. Let's see. Kyle, Corey and Coach P are must watch after every game. Big Ten West champs sound great. Thanks. That's football. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for being here. Zach, appreciate the super chat. Zach, love the show. We love you being here. Thank you, Zach. And D. Rollifson, Slippery Noodle and Weber Grill in Indy. Weber or Weber Grill? I'm not a. Wait a minute. What is he talking about? Weber Grill? Is that a restaurant, or is he actually talking about an actual Weber Grill? What are we talking about? I'm confused. I get the let's go Hawks at the end, though. I understand that. Don, are you going to be going to Indy?
We haven't decided yet.
Okay.
It's not actually too far away from where I'll be at school, so I'm half considering it. I'll have to see what the ticket prices are though, because we've still got a college budget to work with, unfortunately.
Well, I'm going to be applying for press credentials. I'm going to guess they don't give me press credentials for this. But I'm going to do it anyways, so I can say that I did everything I could. I'm going to be doing that when I get off the show. By the way, overtime right now, Wisconsin, Nebraska in Madison, 17-17, first and goal, Badgers. So the longer this game goes, the better it is for Iowa. Nebraska already will have a short turnaround night game here. Plus, they have to play on Friday morning against the Hawks back home following a road trip. So you read into that all you want, but that could be a factor. Jack is the one that said earlier that he thinks Iowa should rest players. He says, read the follow-up. I'm on pain meds, guys. LOL. So we forgive you for the ridiculous comment, the ridiculous suggestion earlier, Jack. Michelle wants to know, what do you think about Iowa's penalties? More penalties today than typical for Iowa, Don. For the day, Iowa had, penalties.
70 yards, I think. 6 penalties.
Yeah, good call.
I can't remember exactly, but I think it was 70 yards or 70-something yards.
Why is this
I know penalties were pretty even, right? They were very even.
Yeah, like 70-56 or something. Let me see if I can.
Typically doesn't have that many issues with penalties. The only thing I said earlier in the show, Don, is that is it perhaps, if you're going to read into things, the emotion of senior day could maybe get people a little bit, their focus maybe waver a little bit.
Well, you couldn't help but notice both sides were a little bit chippy. There were a few little dust-ups between players over the course of the game. Penalties, incidentally, Illinois 6 for 53 yards. We also got flagged 6 for 70. So it's unusual that we get flagged that much. But obviously, there were a couple of questionable calls that were made that went against us. And Illinois fans would probably say the same thing about it from their viewpoint.
Touchdown, Wisconsin. Extra point is good. 24-17 now. Badgers leading the Huskers heading into the second half of overtime number 1. D. Rollifson says, to explain, great restaurants in Indy close to Lucas Oil Stadium. I always hear about the Beef House on the way out there. Have you been to the Beef House before, Don?
Yes, I have. That was a tradition when we played at Indiana State. I remember one year we had a poor first half against Indiana State, and we were the better team. And I did mention at halftime, you don't have to go to the Beef House after the game. You can just pick up from McDonald's and head home if that's what you guys would like to do. And amazingly enough, they played a lot better in the second half. If you've been to the Beef House, you know why they were more motivated.
Well, I don't know if I'll be in Indy, but I'm definitely going to be making a trip to the Beef House if somehow I do make it out there. Don, are we going to do a show from Indy if you make it out there?
Well, we'll do a show one way or the other. How's that?
Stuart says, Corey, your show does a great job at honest game analysis. If that translates to negative for some people, then those people can go cry a river. That's Stuart. Appreciate the, I guess that wasn't a super chat, but I still read it. Charles says, Coach Patterson, your reputation speaks for itself. Always been professional, fair, and yes, honest. I agree with that, Don. Let me, there was one more super chat that I missed. Erica. She was in the queue to jump back on here, but I think she's gone now. She wants a Hayden Fry bedtime story, Don. Can you give us one before we...
She wanted to speak to our caller Jeff with some strong words.
That's why I didn't put her on. But yes, okay, Don, do you have a Hayden Fry story for us?
I don't want to disappoint Erica. Yes, I do have a story, and it's a good motivational story. And I'm not going to be able to tell it exactly as Hayden did, but I'll do the best I can. Let me get my screen back where it was. There we go. It goes something like this. There was let's say it this way: the wisest man in the village was a wise old sage that lived up on a mountain, and everybody in the village knew that he was the smartest man beyond any comparison to anyone else. So if they had a big decision to make, they would make the trek up the mountain, and they would simply ask for great advice from the wisest of all men. But there was one young guy that thought he might be able to expose this guy as a fraud. So he thought up his plan, and then he took steps to carry out his plan. He made the trek up the mountain, and when he got to the wise old man, he said to the old man, I have a bird in my hand behind my back. If you're so wise, you tell me, is that bird alive or dead? And you know what the wise old man said? He said, my son, it is in your hands. Make it as you wish. And that was the lesson. And Coach Fry's point was, your season that we're about to embark on here, this is back in camp, your season is in your hands. Make it as you wish. So that's a story I do recall, and I thought that was a good story because it has a clever little ending that does tie into the fact that you ultimately have your fate in your own hands. So take steps to make it what you want it to be. Hope that'll satisfy. That's all I got for the night.
All right. Let's see. So a couple things. Stephen says the O-line is getting better and better each week, just like a Kirk Ferentz team. I think in large part that's true, Don.
I do.
Protection was good early, then kind of a lull, especially with the Penn State debacle, but that was a really good athletic Penn State defense. But for the most part, they've ran the ball effectively. It hasn't been great. I mean, their numbers are modest, but solid. And today Iowa ended up with 114 net rushing yards, and LaShawn Williams healthy 3.4 yards per carry. Caleb Johnson knocked off a big 30-yard run, 5.3 yards per carry. Jazz Patterson just under 3 a carry, but you can live with those numbers if your defense is playing as well as it has done.
Yep.
M. Finn wants to know, did the NCAA adopt the stupid NFL rule about driving the quarterback? That hit wasn't late, and he didn't hit his head. All he did was land on him. That is an NCAA. That is a college football rule, though, Don. I don't know if it was adopted by the NFL or from the NFL, but you cannot drive the quarterback into the ground. I'm not saying that's what Schulte did, but that is the rule, whether you like it or not.
You've heard that term of planting a guy into the ground. There should be a foul associated with that. You're clearly, to me, it's pretty simple. Are you trying to injure the player? Is it a malicious hit? That was not a malicious hit. That was simply a football hit. That's all it was.
Real quick, before we get to our comment here from Josh, I'm going to walk everybody through this. I'm sure somebody will throw it up in the chat before it jumps over my screen. Wisconsin's up 24-17 overtime against Nebraska. Nebraska now has 4th and 16 in overtime. So this is a do-or-die situation. They got to go for it. Let's see, play clock now under 10. They're at the Wisconsin 31, so they've actually been pushed back on this drive. 4th and 16, and here comes the snap out of the shotgun. And a throw deep down the field and deflected, intercepted. Wisconsin wins 24-17. So the Huskers enter their game against the Hawks needing a win to get to bowl eligibility. So a lot to play for next week. And I'm sure this will be somewhat of an emotional loss for the Huskers. They had a chance to steal one up in Madison, but the Badgers walk away with a win. And now they are bowl eligible in Luke Fickell's first year at the helm. Josh says, hey, Corey, how do you try and keep all 3 of our halfbacks happy enough to want to stay with the program while still utilizing all 3 of them in the game? It's a better question for Don. Don, I know you didn't coach during the transfer portal era, so to speak, but all 3 of these guys have different skill sets. I have a feeling they're not going to be able to hold on to all of them, but that's just kind of the era of the portal and this era of college football.
Well, let's face it, it doesn't matter which one you are. All 3 of them have to feel that they've had a fair opportunity to show what they could do. And they've also heard, I'm sure, from their coach. Liddell, of course, played for us. Liddell understands team concepts. I'm sure he's reminded those guys, this is not all about you. This is all about what's best for our team. And running back by committee is a good thing. Most championship teams have at least 2, if not 3 backs that can play when the game's in. And and confidence in all three. We'd like to keep all three. Unfortunate to me if any of the three left, but if they do leave, in my way of thinking, it's to some degree simply because they're looking for some kind of guaranteed opportunity. They're afraid to compete, maybe. If that's the case, then at that point, if you see them leaving for those kind of reasons, you really haven't lost that much at all. I got to believe all three of them are good competitors, and they'll all think long and hard about leaving Iowa football. That's what I would hope for. And if one of them chooses to leave, we'll wish him well and we'll carry on without him.
Okay. Appreciate the super chat here from Iceman57. Sorry, memories of Hayden and Don's first game at Kennett keep flowing. Hawks were a joke in 78 when the team ran onto the field for the first game in 79 wearing Steeler colors. It was electric. I still hate Tim Clifford.
I do have a story about Lee Corso on that very day. I happened to be standing nearby. Here comes Lee Corso out to talk to Hayden, and I couldn't help but overhear the conversation. And Lee Corso starts off by saying, Hayden, you know, I had a hard time getting my guys out of the locker room because they're afraid to come out here and size you guys up. I think they're afraid to play you guys. You know, that's the kind of comment that Lee made. Of course, he and Hayden go back a long way, and he was just trying to be funny, I think, but it made for a lighthearted conversation, that's for sure. Hayden's response, of course, was, why would they be afraid of us? We haven't struck for into too many opposing teams in recent years, so thanks for the compliment, but I don't really understand why they might be fearful about playing the Hawkeyes. And then they beat us at the end of the game, so we were prepared to play 60 minutes. We played a really good 30 minutes, but we couldn't carry it out in the second half.
Thank you, Iceman57, for the super chat. Brinley Housel, as a former head coach, he would not want a coach saying he shouldn't hire a guy or he should fire a guy on a podcast. I have a hard time believing Don and Kirk told Kirk not to hire Brian as QB coach or to fire him like he said on this podcast. I got a news alert for you, buddy boy. Don has never once said anything about firing Brian. So go run to your mommy. Have a nice night. Bye-bye now. Let's go back to our super chats. D. Rollifson says, top 50 offense, we would have a college football playoff chance. Sure, absolutely, with that schedule, because they would have beaten
top 80 offense or 90 offense.
They should be, let's be honest, as much as we don't like saying this as critics of the program at times, they should be in the conversation right now because they should be 10-1. As much as I don't think any of us believe they're going to win the Big Ten championship game or certainly be able to compete in the playoff, if they were 10-1, 11-1, 12-1 Big Ten champs, the committee would have a hard time keeping them out. Heck, they're 16 in the college football playoff rankings right now with that loss to Minnesota and the blowout to Penn State. So it wouldn't take that much more. And again, if it was a 12-team playoff, it wouldn't matter. They'd be in the race right now. Mark says, not wearing Hawkeye logo and head coach silent. Kirk's leaving or doing something to get himself fired. Well, he's not getting fired. A lot of strange comments in the chat here. I do want to bring this up because it's been brought up to me and people have asked questions and we have not addressed it, Don. Do you read anything into the fact that Brian Ferentz has been wearing all black with no Hawkeye logo the last 2 weeks? I know that's been brought up. It does seem odd, but I don't know how to interpret it. I guess that'd be a better question for Brian.
Right. For all I know, Brian didn't wear logo gear in one of the early season games. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Charles wants to know if there's any potential transfer portal players leaving. Caleb Brown was on the radar for me, but lately I've been wondering about Caleb Johnson, Joey Labus. Frankly, I don't know. I hate saying this, but I have a hard time seeing Joe Labus stick around. And Caleb Brown is involved now, but guys are jumping ship, seems like constantly. Caleb Johnson, one of these running backs, is probably going to leave. There have been rumors about Jazz Patterson, but these are just rumors. The portal window opens in less than a month. We're going to know a lot more in less than a month, and those questions will be answered. And Charles brings up rumors of Vegas and affecting college football NFL games this year. Refereeing, I'm starting to think otherwise. What's your honest thoughts, Don? Do you think the gambling scene in sports and specifically college sports is affecting the game more than we realize?
Well, I certainly don't think the officials are affected at all by by any of that. I think they make it a point of not having any idea about what betting lines are because they don't want to have to admit that they do have an awareness. They have an idea of course, who's favored to win the game, but I'd be shocked if they ever paid any attention whatsoever to gambling betting lines. I don't think so.
All right, before we go back, last couple callers, including your guy Connor, who's been waiting for a long time. So I appreciate Connor doing this. He is after all an Illini fan, so I don't really feel that bad about doing that. Let's go look at our. Let's give a shout out to our Iowa Smokehouse branding messaging here, and they are proudly sponsoring the show as they have each and every of the last couple of basketball and football postgame seasons and throughout football season this year. They're also with us for basketball once again. Use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your total order if you need a better quality snack. And who doesn't on game day or any day? Check out what they have to offer at iowasmokehouse.com. They offer a full lineup sure to satisfy you and your family's snacking needs with their thick and tender cuts of beef jerky, their meat sticks, their delicious steak bites, their ketchups, barbecue sauces, and salsas. You'll never need to look anywhere else. Tasting is believing with Iowa Smokehouse. Use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your total order. And Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Rates have never been this low with auto insurance. This is per Brad Van Meter, so take advantage of those prices, those rates right now. Give him a call. Maybe not right now. Don't give him a call at 10 p.m. on a Saturday, but give him a call on Monday, 515-256-6480. Or you can reach out by visiting him online, www.bradvanmeter.com. Again, that's bradvanmeter.com. You can visit him and his team in person at 4229 Fleur Drive down in Des Moines. Call Brad Van Meter for a free insurance quote. Our RTI Threads player of the game this evening is none other than Torrey Taylor. He certainly has been passed up on a number of times for our player of the game award, Don, and we talked about him earlier. We talked a little bit about his performance tonight and what he's meant to this team this year, but can you put into words, now that he's been through his last game at Kinnick, how much things change? It seems like he's been here forever. How do you replace a guy like Torrey Taylor?
It's going to be difficult. I've never discussed it with any of the coaches, but I've heard we have a lead on another guy from Australia. Have you heard that same thing?
Yes.
Is he already committed? I don't know. I don't keep track of recruiting.
No, he's not committed. Last I knew, let me see if I can go ahead and talk about Torrey, Don, and I'll pull this up, but I'll try to find the information I've got.
Well, first off, I'll say it this way. You know, I had the chance to see Reggie Roby punt, of course, and now I've seen Torrey punt. And I also had a guy at Western Illinois by the name of Mike Cyphers. And if we have any Charger fans, they certainly know who Mike Cyphers was. Mike punted in the NFL, I believe, 12 years, something like that. Outstanding punter, one of the best in all of the NFL. And to back that up, there was a playoff game at Indianapolis. And after the game, when the Chargers won, no less than Peyton Manning said, in a post-game interview, said, "We lost today because of Mike Cyphers." What an ultimate compliment to be made to a punter. So here's Peyton Manning, the opposing quarterback, saying Mike Cyphers was the difference in the game. Torrey Taylor has the capacity to be that kind of difference even in the NFL too. He's certainly been that difference in college in so many games. In any number of games, he has been our MVP, even above any offensive or defensive players. That's how good he is at what he does. And I was just glad to see today he demonstrated all over again that not everything has to be an end-over-end backwards kick. He also demonstrated I can spin the ball off my foot, and when I do, and I hit it well, it goes for a long distance with great hang time. And you ask any punt returner that's ever fielded punts in college or pro, believe me, if it's a 4.6 hang time compared to a 5.2 hang time, there are a lot of punt returners that start losing their nerve when the ball is up there for more than 5 seconds. It's hard to have a 5-second hang time. If you don't believe it, go out in your backyard and try to punt a ball for any distance and keep it in the air for 5 seconds. It's a real challenge to get that done. Very few people can do it.
I have to say as well, Coach Don, you could probably attest to this as well, but maybe this discloses how much of a Iowa fan I am, but the times that I've gone to see Tory Taylor punt in person, to me, it's much more impressive in person. And I, even today, like, was reminded of how great he really is with the different kinds of punts, the different kinds of spin, all the stuff you're talking about, versus on TV where essentially he kicks it and it cuts to the returner. I think that's one of the kind of small things that was really, really great about going to an Iowa game today.
Absolutely.
You are muted, Corey.
I needed a moment to myself, Kyle. Is our RTI Threads player of the game with 8 punts today, 413 yards. And once again, more often than not, he has outgained his offense. I think the exception being probably just this one game against Rutgers. I don't know that. I know he averages more punt yards than the Iowa offense does total yards. 52-yard average today. Really impressive numbers once again. And had he had his right-hand man, Cooper DeJean, as a gunner, I think he would have had more than 2 punts pinned inside the 20. Cohen and Tringer is going to be a fine young DB, but Don, that one play by Cohen down near the goal line irritated the living daylights out of me. I'm watching that ball just parade down toward the goal line, and an excellent opportunity for Cohen to just, you would think, just bat that ball back. And it's almost like he rolled with it, like grabbed it and rolled into the end zone.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
Anyway.
you're pretty sure that number 3 would have downed it, aren't you?
I'm very sure of that. John Nestor did make a nice play. I think he's going to be a good gunner. He's a young kid out of the Chicago area. He's got a bright future as a DB at Iowa as well. All right. Couple quick notes before we move on. I know I've said that like several times, but I do want to get these things in. Don, this is what Iowa football is. It's 3rd and 1 in the first quarter. Then it's 4th and 1 because they run. Of course, they're not going to throw on 3rd and 1 and treat it like a waste down because we're not going to go for it on 4th and 1. 4th and 1, they punted midfield. And, you know, the first part of me wants to be critical about that. The second half of me says, well, I guess it's probably the right decision because they'll get the ball back anyways. What happens 3 plays later? Safety in the end zone. So, you know, the Kirk Ferentz way works once again. I mentioned the quick review call against Illinois. I thought it was a bad quick review call, if you want to call it that, from the officials. Brett Bielema called a timeout to have that catch looked at. And again, I watched it on the replay. Maybe it was incomplete, but I didn't see it as conclusive, and I think it was worth a longer look. And then later on, I believe the same drive, a pass interference flag was picked up. A pass interference called to number 8, Deshaun Lee. I thought that was a bad call against the Illini. If I was an Illini fan, I would have been mad at officiating in that first half. And there were some calls that went against Iowa as well, but that's just me being objective. We talked about going empty. We talked about Cohen and Tringer. We talked about the crap roughing call on Quinn Schulte on 3rd down. It was a critical down, Don. That was a consequential penalty called on Quinn Schulte. Could have potentially been the difference in the game. Iowa was going to get that ball back.
And I'll simply ask this question. Is there any way you would view it as a malicious hit?
No, not at all.
He was simply playing football and trying to tackle the quarterback.
Real quick for everybody, just so everybody's aware, Iowa State now trailing Texas by 10 late in the 4th. Iowa State with the ball. So we'll keep you posted on that. Erica says that she's surprised Jeff didn't get a buddy boy. There's still time, Erica. There's still time. D. Rollison, 24 Kirk passes. Amos Alonzo Stagg, 25-26 for Hayes. I don't know how the math works out there, but can he pass Hayes by 25, Don?
I don't know. I'm not sure. To be honest with you, it's a little bit unfair to base it on wins because the dirty little secret, of course, they play more games nowadays than they did in yesteryear.
Yep.
So it's don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful accomplishment, but it's only part of the picture.
And Iceman 57, appreciate the super chat, Iceman. You won't believe this, Don, but I'm buddies with a Hoosier DB who played on special teams your first game in '79. His Corso stories from that game are priceless. I can't share them. I'm running out of money. Thank you, Weissman, for that. He's really obsessed with that first game in '79, isn't he, Don?
Well, it's a game that neither one of us will ever forget.
Yes. D. Rollifson, I read the super chat already from him. Okay. Wolverine Nation, thank you. Says probably the best after game podcast on YouTube. I appreciate that, Wolverine Nation. All right, let's bring your buddy in here, Kyle. Let's bring Connor into the mix here. All right, Connor. So
what's up, y'all? Can you hear me? First off,
we can hear you.
Awesome.
Just so everybody's clear, I watched the video. It's legitimate. Kyle sent it to me way prior to the game. It's legit. There's no doctoring. So let's go ahead and watch the video. I'll pull it up on Instagram so everybody can see it and give Kyle a little plug on his Instagram here. So Don, this is proof. Again, this was sent to me prior to the game ever starting. And if you want, Kyle, you can kind of walk him through this, and I'll pause it at certain points during this video so he can see exactly what happened here. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see this. Can I make this full screen? Is it making?
You can go to YouTube Shorts if you want. I put it up on YouTube as well. That might be a easier place to get it up. While you pull it up, I'll explain the video. So Connor and I, it was actually this morning, Corey. We went out at 10 o'clock before the game.
Okay.
Because we saw that the weather was nice, and we actually didn't even decide before we went that we were going to do this. But we got to the first hole. I can't remember where exactly we suggested it, but I think Connor suggested it. But we said what we're going to do is we're going to play the second, third, fourth, and fifth holes, and each hole is going to correspond to 1/4 of the game. And if we make a birdie on the hole, so he represented Illinois, I represented Iowa. If we make a birdie on the hole, our team is going to score a touchdown in the quarter. A par is worth a field goal. A bogey means our defense gives up a field goal, so the other team gets a field goal. And a bogey means that the other team gives up a touchdown, so the other team would score a touchdown. And then whatever the total score was at the end of the 4 holes would be our predicted score for the game. And what happened was on the first hole, Connor made a birdie, I made a par, 7-3 Illinois. Second hole, I made a bogey, Connor made a par, so it was 13-3 Illinois.
Yep.
And then on the third hole, I made a par and Connor made a bogey, so it was 13-9 Illinois. And then on the last hole, Connor made a bogey, I made a par, 15-13 Iowa.
Wow. That is amazing.
Why don't I? So actually, YouTube is not going to be cooperative with me on this. So we're going to go back to Instagram. The new YouTube formula, I don't even know how to get, or format, I should say. I don't even know how to get a short to show up full screen. So we might as well just go off your Instagram.
Okay.
Because I can actually avoid the sound playing at the same time. So let's start at the beginning here, Don, and I hope we don't lose viewers, but I don't really care at this point. Actually, viewers have gone up since we brought in Connor, so apparently people drink your tears for today's game, Connor.
I'd love to have a little bit of a chat here too. I'd love to give a couple opinions, and I have a question for Don specifically after too.
Okay, perfect. Let's see if we can get this. Why does it start playing before I want it to start playing?
It plays automatically when you click on the video.
I hate that. Okay, I'll pause it here. Now I'll share the screen. So I apologize for the slight delay. Don, hopefully you can see the video. It's going to be a little small.
I'll try.
But, this is the Iowa-Illinois score prediction. So as you can see, Connor's wearing an Illinois jersey. Whose jersey is that, Connor?
There is I found it at a Marshall's for pretty cheap, so it's not a person, it's just a nice jersey.
Okay, and Kyle's wearing a Luka Garza jersey, I think, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so go ahead, Kyle. You want me to play?
Yeah, so we played it at Brown Deer this morning in Coralville. It's the course that I grew up at. And so we played the format like I described. You can probably hit play, Corey, but yeah, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. I put the scoring there at the top. So birdie 7 points, par is worth 3 points, and bogey concede 3, double concede 7, and each hole was worth the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter.
So I mean, I wasn't pretending to actually be tracking this as I'm seeing your shot tracker and everything, but we can watch this through and actually see. It takes a lot of hard work to get all these different camera angles and all these shots recorded, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a different focus than going to play golf, like just for fun or competitively. It's a lot of extra.
What course is this, guys?
This is Brown Deer in Coralville.
Okay.
Not too
That's
far
what I
from
thought.
Yeah.
I knew it wouldn't think about it.
Yeah.
They've got into the first quarter, Illinois up 7-3. We move on to the second quarter.
That was a nice slice into the creek.
I'll slice the crap out of that, and Connor hooked the crap out of that. Well,
I was in play. He wasn't, so.
I was not, yeah.
Nice little wedge out of the rough there. Well, you sped those putts up quite a bit, didn't you?
I do. Unfortunately, I have to keep my clips under 3 minutes or 2 minutes, or otherwise I start to lose viewers.
Oh, massive hook from Connor there.
Yeah.
He saves himself out of the trees. And then the 2-iron from Kyle there, right?
Wow, what a recovery that was.
That was a beauty.
Yeah.
2-iron. And missing high.
I missed high as well. So it was 13-9.
13-9.
That was a beautiful shot. Just a little bit too long for Connor.
Kyle hit a beauty into this one.
So I can be critical about this because I wasn't playing. I'm sure nobody
blew the putt
was.
by a little bit. And then Connor was actually very close to making this.
Wow.
It is done.
Yeah.
Look at that final score, Don.
That was posted, an hour before or 30 minutes before kickoff? Hour before kickoff.
Yeah.
Don,
you guys could make a lot of money with this,
I don't know how to market it because I feel like I need to put it up again just to put it out there again. But
everybody check out Kyle's golf page, Kyle Spence Golf, Kyle Spence Golf, all one word on Instagram, and you're also on YouTube.
Yep.
All right.
Maybe I'll have to do it again. I might try and play again tomorrow because I think tomorrow's our last nice day. So maybe I'll have somebody represent Nebraska.
There you go.
See if we can do it again.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
I
don't have any friends that would be Nebraska fans and golfers, but I'm sure I could convince somebody. Maybe my dad. Maybe I'll throw red on my dad and make him do it.
Your dad dressed in red. So Connor, you had a couple of questions for Coach.
Well, yeah. So first off, just one observation and then a question. So observation was Caleb Brown was a stud. It reminded me of Isaiah Williams because he was a high-ranked wide receiver. Didn't really play well at the start. And then as he grew, it really showed the talent that he had. And so to me, he's definitely somebody who, for Iowa, should be the main piece going forward. Now, my question for Don was, I'm an Illinois fan, so I listen to Illinois sports podcasts, and one of our, host, we'll say he's a host, he talked about how Kirk runs the offense, and he has such a hold on what they do. And so I'm curious, how much rope would he give a new offensive coordinator coming into Iowa after Bryant's gone?
It's a good question.
It would depend, I think, on who that candidate was. Obviously, if he's in high demand and has a lot of different options about where he might go, he has a significant bargaining chip with Kirk at that point.
Yeah.
In other words, he's simply not going to go anywhere unless he has the opportunity to run his offense, whatever that might be. So I think the more in demand that person would be, the more clout that he has in negotiating how that would all play out.
Yeah.
Having said that, Kirk is a very reasonable person. If that person he hires has got a track record indicating that he knows exactly what he's doing, I don't think for a second that Kirk wouldn't give him a chance to do his job the way in which he knew how to do it, the best way that he knew how to do it. I think that's what would happen. Kirk would still make all the big decisions, of course. Do I go for it on fourth down or not?
Yeah.
Do we try for a field goal or do we punt? Those kind of things. Those are head coaching decisions that the coordinator should not be making. a head coach might ask the coordinator for his opinion, and if he solicited the opinion, of course, he would expect an honest answer. But ultimately, those kind of decisions are made by the head coach, and the head coach all by himself.
It sounds like that because it's what Connor's talking about is a balance. Once the coordinator's hired, to me, what I think of is more that would sort of weigh in Kirk's mind as the hiring process goes on. I mean, he knows obviously as he takes somebody in with more experience and more success that he's going to have to give them more rope. But I think once the person's hired, then that relationship will kind of be established based on the credentials that come in the hiring process. Would that be correct? It's more the decision on how much rope to give him will probably be decided while the coordinator's being hired, it won't really be something that's adjusted during the tenure.
Well, let's face it, the better he does his job, the more rope he'll be given. You can bet
the
on
less
that
Kirk
too.
has to get involved. Yeah.
I would have to think that if somehow they landed a guy like Ryan Grubb, that Kirk would give him some rope.
I would hope so.
I would hope. But I don't know. Okay. Am I missing anything else? Anything else from you, Connor? Am I?
One last observation. I think that Brian Ferentz, in terms of his coaching, we know that he is coming out after this year. Iowa fans have not seen good offense for a long time. And I think having 2 weeks where the offense looks, we'll say competent, not great, it kind of makes it seem like it's great. And so I think that just having these 2 weeks doesn't mean that his job should be saved. As an Illinois fan, honestly, I'd rather you keep him. But
I want to remind to our buddy boy caller earlier that they scored 15 points tonight. They scored 15 points. And we're acting like it's the moon landing, like, oh, praise Brian. It's like they scored 15 points, man. 15. I mean, that's great and all, but they scored 15 points.
And we had an offensive explosion last week for 22 points, which still would not have hit the metric that Brian and Kirk set for Brian.
Yeah, isn't that something? I thought about that too. 22 points, we're all celebrating, and yet it's still below that 25-point metric that was ridiculous. I agree with that was a ridiculous. I agree with Jeff on that. That was a ridiculous metric, but that was not all Gary Barta. We've established that. You don't have to believe me if you don't want to, but anyways. Connor, appreciate you jumping on. I enjoyed the little golf antics you guys were up to before the game, and keep it up. And just hope, and maybe you need to start wearing Nebraska colors. And
sorry, I don't represent them.
Start hitting more of those trademark hooks that we saw in that video.
He was a very solid player a couple years ago. I'll say his focus is not on golf anymore. After he was an old college teammate, so
well, he's a lot better than I am. So I'm ripping him because he can't prove it right now. But anyways, thank you for jumping on, Connor.
Thank you. Peace out, y'all.
All right. Anything else, Don? Is there anything else that I'm missing?
I can't think of anything.
The show has gone a little bit rogue.
I did see earlier. I don't know if you said it or noticed this, Corey, but somebody was commenting that our caller Jeff earlier, his last name actually is Brian. So
I don't know if that's true or not, but thank you. Also, Wolverine Nation says, "Hey Corey, what's your opinion on schools like OSU, Bama illegally paying players to land 5-star recruits?" I would say, prove it to me. You're just saying that, and if you have proof, then send it to me. Send it to the NCAA, and we can discuss it. But
I doubt Nick Saban needs to pay a whole ton of money to get 5-star recruits.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any. I don't know that Michigan fans. No offense to Wolverine Nation here. I don't think Michigan fans should be accusing other teams of cheating right now. Like, to be quite frank. Yeah, that's what Erica says in the chat. Someone called Wolverine Nation should not talk about things that are illegal. Anyways, okay, this was sort of a rogue show in some respects, but we got through it, Don, and overall, just what a day. So happy for Brian, so happy for Kirk and this team. So many guys that worked so hard to get here and did have to deal with a lot of adversity. And the contract thing was a distraction. And the news about Brian's future, I'm sure, could have been a distraction. They dealt with injuries to some of their better players, and yet this team rallied to 10-1. It just, I think, is a testament to how great of a coach, or excuse me, 10-1. I keep saying that 9-2. Don, it's just a testament to how great of a head coach Kirk Ferentz is, because if there's anybody that I have faith and trust in to rally the troops, regardless of the circumstances, whether it be a lawsuit that's brought up against his team prior to week 1 in 2020, or his son getting basically fired midway through the season this year. I mean, just go down the list. They were 0-2 after that lawsuit was thrown out against Kirk and against Brian, against Chris Doyle in 2020. They rallied to a 6-2 finish, and probably to a 7-2, 8-2 finish if they hadn't had the last 2 games canceled. It's just incredible how he has the ability, the uncanny ability to get his guys together. I have to think some of that was learned from Coach John Hayden Fry, but also just as a testament to who Kirk Ferentz is as a person.
Very true. And let's not forget, Kirk would give a lot of credit to the players, because you've always heard me say you win with character. You recruit the right kind of players. They do have to have talent, that's for sure, but they have to be highly motivated and they have to have great character. And our guys have that. That's what the coaches recruit.
We always, when we were having more of the Brian conversations, we always talked about how the bad play was a reflection of Brian's coaching. And I think we have to say the same thing about the culture and the players. They're a reflection of Kirk Ferentz's character. And I think that's a great thing.
Don, I want to get some final thoughts from you on Nebraska. I know you haven't watched the Wisconsin game yet, but the Hawks will travel to Lincoln for a rowdy contest against a desperate Husker team that's desperate to make a bowl game finally. They're 5-6. They need this win on Friday. Iowa does not need it as much because they're in the Big Ten championship game regardless, but they would like to get Nebraska back for what happened to them last year in Kinnick. How does Iowa go on the road and beat Big Red?
Well, our guys have tremendous pride. They want to represent. You've heard me say, Corey, and I'm sure the message is going to be delivered from the coaches to the players. Our job is to represent the West as well as we possibly can. Clearly, we need to be 10-2 to represent, to give the Big Ten Conference what they always desire, and that's the best possible matchup. Let's face it, on paper, if we're 10-2, that's a lot better than 9-3. 9-3, now people have some argument for not even watching the game, because it's not a fair competition. It's going to be a one-sided game. That's what people would say. If we're 10-2, we put our best foot forward. One of those games was a dubious loss too, as you know. And so now you're talking about, without question, hands down, the best opposition from the West. We need to win that decisively. We need to win on Friday rather, and be 10-2.
By the way, for anybody that's wondering, Iowa State falls to Texas 26-16 at Jack Trice Stadium. So a sad Ames, but that team's a lot better, Don, than they were last year. I'll give Coach Campbell and that whole staff a lot of credit. They are a lot better than they were a year ago. I will be joined by Coach Patterson next Friday, Black Friday, for Iowa, Nebraska post-game coverage. That game will begin kickoff 11 a.m. Central Time on CBS. And as a reminder, Iowa and Drake, the women, back on the hardwood tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Central Time on Fox Sports 1. Don, you'll be at that game, won't you?
Yes, we will.
Loyal Hawkeye, look at you.
Looking forward to it.
Caitlin Clark and the Iowa women will be looking to bounce back against the Bulldogs, who took them to overtime a year ago down at the Knapp Center. One final reminder to check out our sponsors. We talked about Iowa Smokehouse. They've been sponsoring the postgame coverage, including our postgame call-in line. Shop RTI Threads as well. Cooper DeJean's Apparel. I've got the CD3 Laces Up shirt on right now, or sweatshirt, but a full lineup there at cd3lacesup.com, including the It Was Not a Fair Catch apparel. Also shop Aaron Graves, Carson Shire, Aiden Hall, Zach Lutmer, all up-and-coming young stars at rtithreads.com. You can also support the show, folks, by signing up for a free trial of Aura. Visit www.aura.com/Hawkeyes. You can find the link in the description below and let Aura know that we sent you from the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube, sent you. and you are benefiting the show. Completely free. Protect your information and experience peace of mind with Aura. And again, use that /Hawkeyes. Also, we've got a merch store. Check it out from the Hawkeye of the Storm merchandise through Spreadshop. You can check out the link in the description below for that as well. If you're interested in donating to the show, to the cause, there are ways to do that. Certainly, super chats are appreciated, but there's also donation links to Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. If you want to donate by credit card, you can do so by PayPal as well. All that information is in the description. Follow me at From the Hawkeye on Twitter and Instagram, From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. If you want to become a premium member, click join next to the From the Hawkeye of the Storm channel on YouTube. And again, we'll be back with you tomorrow to talk Iowa Drake women following what we hope to be a bounce back victory for the women. So Kyle, we've integrated you more and more into the show the last couple of weeks. So we appreciate you being on here, and you keep predicting these Iowa scores, then I guess we have no choice but to have you on the show more. So keep up the good work. I don't know how you're going to do it with the cold weather. By the way, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Top Golf, or it's not going to be Top Golf, but when is the Tiffin thing open?
I have heard that it's within the next couple of weeks. They have pushed it back several times. I'm certainly confident it'll be open this side of Christmas. There's no doubt about that. So, we drive by it frequently. My house is actually within 5 minutes of there. So it looks ready to go.
Your next assignment as a helper and part of this show is you're gonna make sure that they're sponsoring this show. All right. You have pull. You're a name. You're a future pro, right? You're going to. We're going to pair up with. Is it Top Golf, or it's their subsidiary? What's it called? What's it going to be?
It's called Pin Seeker. It's a branch off of Top Golf. Yeah.
So what is it? What will it look like compared to
it'll for people that know what a Top Golf looks like? It'll look like any Top Golf. It's slightly smaller and the targets are slightly different. They're essentially just less sophisticated and less expensive to build. So it's a smaller Top Golf.
Don, you're gonna like that, Don, right?
I don't know. I've never gone that route. I do spend some time on the practice tee, but I've never done it in the wintertime. Never done that.
You're going to go down there, Don, and you're going to have a good time. Connor with the super chat, he says, Jerry McGinn hates Iowa, same ref as the 2016 Northwestern game, the 2019 Purdue game. He by far has had his worst calls in Kinnick. Is that a coincidence? Well, John, what's his face? O'Day hates Iowa, and Jerry McGinn hates Iowa, and Ed Hightower hated Iowa, and certainly Courtney Green hates Iowa, and Teddy Valentine hates Iowa, and they all hate Iowa, right?
I will admit, through all these years, there were a few, not many, but a few referees that I honestly wondered if they had something in for us. You wonder about a few, not many.
All right, folks.
It feels like McGinn might be one of those guys.
Poor McGinn. We end on that note. Anyways, we're going to end it there, folks. The Hawkeyes headed to Indy, but first a trip to Lincoln for a shot at Big Red. The Hawkeyes over the Illini tonight, 15-13. For Kyle, Don Patterson, myself, Corey Braddock from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll talk to you very soon. Iowa Drake women's basketball postgame tomorrow night. We'll talk to you then.